Chapter 351, Evolution Across Space. I have more evolution points now. Previously, the various evolution points he had on hand were not as abundant. Unless he wanted to evolve into epic 3-star soldiers, he wouldn't retain too many evolution points. However, now that the evolution points had been unified, the power of the evolutionary miracle he received came not only from undead, human race, elemental, nature, flying and several other major categories, but also from some other minor troop types. The rare level remnant souls obtained by the exploratory team during their hunting missions were not all sold by Yuan. For example, troop types like nuns, which start at rare 1-star, he would retain for his own recruitment. Outside of the major categories, troops like giants, giant steel snakes, and iron-clad scorpions, Yuan would also keep and recruit. Simply put, these troops were quite suitable for the construction industry. These elite soldiers alone did not bring him a lot of evolution points. However, after the relocation of his territory, ordinary remnant souls could not be sold, so Yuan selectively recruited some of them. He took into consideration the possibility of the Evo power continuing to evolve and unify across all types. I didn't recruit all the ordinary remnant souls earlier because there were still some uncertainties in the future, and I was worried that raising a large number of useless troops would lead to an overly great strain on the territory's food supplies. He had his principles. Either he wouldn't recruit remnant soul soldiers, or once he did, he would take responsibility for them until the end, even if the newly born troops had no intelligence at all. Before, he only recruited troops like statues, iron-skinned soldiers, and oakmen, which had very low daily upkeep. Now, well, even if it would substantially increase the food consumption of the territory, Yuan had to recruit little goblins, grey wolves, half-orcs, and underworld humans. They were no longer useless, they had become machines for producing evolution points. After several battles, the common remnant souls piled up in his Tianyuan territory's warehouse were countless. Yuan sorted through his thoughts. Of course, even if I want to recruit these ordinary troops, I still have to ensure there is enough food. We just welcomed a large number of refugees not long ago, and the pressure on our food supplies has already significantly increased. Now, Tianyuan territory wanted to cultivate farmland outside the city walls, which was feasible, but not entirely safe. Yuan tried to control the expansion of his territory as much as possible, and even the elite squads tried to eliminate their tracks when they went out and returned, all for fear of being discovered by the monster overlord. Under such circumstances, whether to extensively cultivate farmland or to build another set of wider city walls outside the first-generation walls was not appropriate. If this were before, Yuan would be worried about how to increase food production to feed the large number of lords and evolution points producing machines. Now, well, he turned his gaze to the 3 semi-mystic realms that faintly appeared above his territory. Among them, the skeletal cemetery and ice spirit cold pool were not suitable for opening up agriculture and animal husbandry, but the treeman forest was very suitable. The terrain of the treeman forest was flat, with half the area not covered by many trees, and the other half covered by lush forests, which also grew many fruit trees. Even without cultivating farmland, the treeman forest could provide plenty of food. The troops that acted as machines for producing evolution points could also be scattered into the 2 semi-mystic realms of the skeletal cemetery and ice spirit cold pool, so as not to overcrowd the territory. He began to calculate how many troops he could recruit first with the current food reserves. After a while, he failed to calculate. Mainly because he did not understand the daily consumption of the territory's citizens as clearly as Ilo did. This task should indeed be left to little Ilo, can't steal her job, right? He was truly a considerate lord to his subordinates. Yuan silently called upon the Evo power, and a row of glaze-colored fonts began to emerge one by one. Evolution points, 150,233.66. In the brief time he pondered, a good number of evolution points had been credited to his account. He concentrated, and could even see the evolutionary miracle light particles, like sparkles of stars, converging from all directions. They formed into streams and gradually, in front of him, came together to form a small lake. The lake shimmered with a rainbow glow, mysterious and revered. With this rate, over the course of a whole day, he could gain approximately 18,000 plus Evo power. In one day, he could evolve 3.5 epic lives. Just by saving up for 4.5 days, he could evolve an epic 3-star. The hint to transform from an epic 3-star to a legendary 1-star life is 500,000. That number seemed huge before, but now it would take less than a month to gather. If you count the current stock, he only needed to save up for another 20 days to give dead bone a purifying sublimation. That was fast. But now that the evolution points were universally applicable, it was impossible not to use even a tiny bit of evolutionary power, just to produce a legendary life form. He would evolve a batch of little elites every few days, helping them to develop intelligence and awaken their consciousness. Some of the old soldiers with self-awareness, after accumulating enough contributions to the territory, would also apply to him, requesting to advance to Excellence 3-star, or even Epic 1-star. At this stage, we're facing threats from the monster overlord, and it's not suitable to hold on to evolution points. We need to convert them into strength that can stand by our side as soon as possible. For example, giving Liu Lu an opportunity for evolutionary baptism. Liu Lu, through evolution, had elevated his life's foundational tier, shortening the time it would take for his breakthrough to the legendary realm. Moreover, Liu Lu could also leverage the power of evolutionary miracles to deeply study the extreme training method. At the very least, the enhanced combat power of Liu Lu post-evolution would further solidify his chances in arm wrestling with werewolf legends. His Tianyuan territory now possessed Dead Bone and Duo Lai, 2 super legends, as well as him, Lord Shepherd, a mighty one wielding great force, but the number of their legends was still far too scarce compared to their enemies. If Fang of the Jackal Wolf wished to wage war on multiple fronts, their power would be spread too thin. Among the T1 powerhouses of his territory, Liu Lu, Yuda, Rakshasa, and Tree Demon Granny were all capable of standing up against legends. Now, with an abundance of evolution points, Mu Yuan planned to allocate them one by one. There's also the Water Mirror Dragon Daifu. If its contributions are sufficient, it too can be given the opportunity for an evolutionary baptism, he thought. Tool-type soldier species like giants could also be evolved slightly. Mountain giants had always been T0 class soldiers excelling at siege warfare, outperforming even giants dragons of the same level in siege and destruction. Mu Yuan didn't particularly need to besiege cities, but using the likes of the massive-bodied mountain giants against aggregated monsters made for an apt application. Powerful beings could defeat aggregated monsters alone but not stop them, while mountain giants could. What if he continued to evolve the mountain giants? It's a pity the giants have only started being recruited intermittently since 3 months ago. Their levels are still lacking, so epic evolution will have to come from their own contributions, which is not something we will see for now. The unification of Evo power provided him with more possibilities. As he enlisted batch after batch of common remnant souls, the accumulation rate of Evo power would rise yet again. Furthermore, Mu Yuan gazed into the azure sky. He saw, in the extremities of his vision, evolutionary light particles coming in, converging into streams. These were provided by soldier species from outside his territory. He could vaguely trace the providers of the evolution points, noticing skeleton morticians moving through dense forests. A few specks of light also surged out of the void, originating from places far more remote. That was Sophia and her 2 companions, as well as the elites of Shilling City, providing Evo power. To think that I can collect it from such a distance, and furthermore, Mu Yuan focused, tracking the flight path of the evolved light particles, and he had a faint notion that he could also trace the general location of the providers. There was a subtle connection there. Among them, the strongest connection point was 17, who had undergone a full 5 evolutionary baptisms. As long as this connection exists, it seems I could transmit the power of evolutionary miracles across the distance. The range he could evolve things from afar was a few kilometers before, but now was limitless. Of course, this was as long as they were his own soldiers and had undergone at least 1 evolutionary baptism. If they were not his own soldiers, it seems, even then, evolution is not impossible. He was now able to grasp the miracle power of evolutionary miracles in the unknown. This meant he could begin to use the power of evolutionary miracles without being confined to a framework. However, evolving outsiders was more difficult, requiring 2 prerequisites. One is close proximity. Mu Yuan raised his hand, the palm of his right hand swirling with a mass of miracle power visible only to him. This was the hand of evolution. Secondly, the resistance to this kind of evolution is greater, potentially causing a lot of Evo power to diffuse throughout the process. The same evolution would require several times or even more than 10 times the miracle power. This is an action with a low cost-benefit ratio. He couldn't possibly do this for the time being. But in the future, if needed, without ruling out the possibility of this service being offered to outsiders, providing such secrecy measures are in place. This could be an extremely valuable bargaining chip. Evolutionary miracle unified, evolution across space, evolution for outsiders. These were the three tangible changes brought about by the evolution of Evo power. After taking hold of evolutionary miracles and contacting Sophia and the others, Yuan's first thought was to give the three a round of evolutionary baptisms. For each of the trio, 20,000 evolution points were required. Altogether, they would need only 60,000. Lord Shepherd deemed this a drop in the bucket. He was also concerned about the three, delving deeper into the wilderness, wanting to bolster their strength a bit more for increased safety and a better chance of finding clues. However, eerie phenomena would appear during the epic evolution process. This was a troubling issue. No, it wasn't that troublesome. It certainly couldn't be concealed, but the real process of evolution only took a few minutes. Even if the light of evolution around Sophia and the others was too dazzling and discovered by surrounding enemies, nothing would go wrong within a few minutes. What about after? Sophia and the group would have already made their escape, leaving behind nothing but rumors of epic treasures/epic lives being born in that place. In fact, those who often explore the depths of the wilderness know that epic radiance is not that rare. If you spend a lot of time in the wilderness, you would see them now and again. However, just seeing them doesn't mean you have a chance to obtain them. There may still be a billion miles of distance between the two. Yuan usually concealed epic phenomena to avoid exposing his own territory. The location of the territory was fixed, but Sophia and her companions were not. They would stay briefly and leave. What does the unearthing of epic treasures have to do with them? They were merely passing by. Despite saying that, the necessary preparations were still indispensable. Yuan had Sophia and the others find a relatively safe and hidden area, and set up some warning and defense mechanisms. Thank goodness my talent for spiritual link has super evolved, otherwise even if I could transcend space to give them an evolutionary baptism, I wouldn't dare to do so without any means of communication. 17 hours later, Sophia activated the seed of spirit, and Yuan sent a message. Is this place suitable? Be careful of the wisdom monsters in the surrounding area. No problem, this place is absolutely safe. Sophia was certain. Yuan grew worried. Was there really an absolutely safe place in the depths of the wilderness? There is, the time-limited secret realm of challenge is very safe. Yuan. There was such a method? Sophia and her group had found a general-use secret realm of challenge of not too high a tier, and cleared the challenge stages with just a few caws. Since the level of the secret realm wasn't high, they didn't obtain any particularly rare treasures as rewards, however. The entire secret realm was devoid of other challengers, not a single person in sight, with the secret realm isolating the inside from the outside. It truly was a very safe place suitable for carrying out the evolutionary ceremony. Yuan was considering whether, if he went to the Temple of Knowledge, he could use the power of this miracle building's rules to conceal the phenomena of evolution? Probably not. After all, the building of the Temple of Knowledge is somewhat unable, even unable to withstand the enlightenment storm of dead bone. Inside the secret realm, Sophia still made some simple defensive arrangements, then stared at the sky with wide eyes. There was no sky within the secret realm of challenge. But she knew that the familiar light of evolution would descend from above. Here it comes. She felt again that warm, familiar, comforting light. The first to evolve was 17, the arrow of Polar Star. In the moment the evolutionary miracle cascaded down, the link between Yuan and 17 grew even tighter. He could faintly see 17 sitting on a marble floor, a bough beside her, with two blurry figures in the distance, looking upward in anticipation. Alert, your troop 17 has bathed in the evolutionary miracle, evolved into an epic 2 stars life form, and awakened the epic talent Chasing Stars power. Chasing Stars power, 17 shoots an arrow towards the starry sky, which responds with endless stellar brilliance. The arrow of Polar Star, 17, can draw upon the power of starlight, refining herself within it, causing her base 3 attributes, mental strength, and soul power to increase slowly. Additionally, 17 can use the starlight to lock onto enemies or gather the power of starlight to significantly enhance her combat power for a short period. The moment 17's transformation was complete, starlight pierced through the secret realm and fell upon her. Her basic 3 attributes steadily climbed higher, her body grew more robust, her thought processes clearer, and even without opening her eyes, her mind could already perceive everything around her. Her spirit grew more transparent. Her light of will was lit. There was no moment to marvel at 17's evolution, for next to bathe in the miraculous light was Sophia, the Nether Raven Witch. Alert! Your troop Sophia has bathed in the evolutionary baptism, evolved into an epic 2 stars life form, and awakened the epic talent Phantom Night Eyes. A pair of deep black giant pupils appeared behind Sophia. Her figure seemed to fade from reality. And below the pitch black giant pupils, Lian Yu's fur bristled, feeling completely exposed. Chapter 352, Situation and Passage. In the empty secret realm, 17 had just awoken from the afterglow of evolution while Sophia's figure had vanished, leaving only a pair of huge, pitch-black, sinister eyes fixated on what lay ahead. Lian Yu was right within the line of sight of these dark, giant eyes. Her massive wolf tail shot up, the fluffy fur exploding outward, while her pupils narrowed and her teeth bared, feeling as if everything about her was being seen through by this pair of giant black eyes, with nothing left hidden. "This is terrifying, she muttered. Although the giant eyes came from Sophia and being seen through didn't really matter, her instincts were quite sharp, and the sensation of being stared down by these pitch-black eyes was a bit uncomfortable. Lian Yu didn't dare to speak, afraid of disturbing the two. She tiptoed and silently moved to the side, moving again and again. Finally, when she had moved out of the range of the giant black eyes, the feeling that had made her wolf fur stand on end disappeared, and Lian Yu sighed in relief. But what exactly are these giant eyes? Phantom Night Eyes. Ability, Stealth in the Night. Sophia can completely hide her form in the darkness of night. With her talent actively activated, Sophia can share this stealth ability with her created black crows. Ability, Formless in the Night. Under the cover of night, Sophia's inside ability is greatly enhanced. With this talent actively activated, Sophia can manifest a pair of giant black eyes capable of keen perception, significantly extending her scope of vision, and these eyes can also pierce through illusions and see through enemies. The Formless in the Night ability can also be shared with the created black crows, albeit with diminished effects. Ability, those with the Phantom Night Eyes talent, regardless of whether they are in broad daylight or any other time of day, always perceive it as night. This talent is quite interesting. Just considering the talent's effects, it's actually not very strong. Both stealth and insight are just decent, but compared with real epic abilities, they seem to fall a bit short. However, when paired with the created black crows, the stealth and insight effects become extremely fitting. Sophia is already one of the best scouts in the Tianyuan territory. Her position as number 1 scout comes from her crows. Sophia's black crows can share their vision and don't actually die, allowing her to use them to continuously explore dangerous regions or directly infiltrate enemy lines to gather intelligence. However, Sophia's crows had quite a few shortcomings until now. The stealth ability of her crows was just passable, difficult to detect at night or in dark environments like dense forests. But in the daytime or open spaces, Sophia's black crows were extremely conspicuous. Compared to stealth, the insight ability of the crows was weaker, practically non-existent. The crows relied solely on sight, yet their vision was far from as sharp as that of the hawks. Now, with this talent bolstering them, whether in terms of stealth or insight, the black crows could be considered top-notch, and they no longer had the weakness of being less effective in daylight. After all, with the talent active, it is perpetually night. Yuan decided to give it a try. He snapped his fingers and several lustrously black crows fluttered out from his sleeve. The sun was blazing at that moment, yet the crows seemed to bathe in the night, their forms gradually disappearing. Yuan found eye low and then shook his head. "Forget it, you're too strong, can't really test anything." He then called over Daisy, who was working in the city lord's mansion. The fox lady, Daisy, was now a 4th order peak strongman herself, and although she had not yet evolved into an epic life, her excellence 3-star stage and 4th order peak status better represented the vast majority of strongmen in the world. "Take a look over here." Yuan pointed toward a street lamp not far away. "Is this street lamp broken?" Daisy wondered aloud, but such a trivial matter wouldn't require the boss to call upon her personally. Yuan shook his finger. Thinking it over, Daisy ventured a guess. "Does someone need to replace the street lamp?" She glanced at herself and then at the lord. Yuan sighed. As Daisy gazed at the street lamp, she stared intently for several seconds before she noticed something amiss. She focused harder, her fox ears perked, her brow furrowing slightly. After a long pause. "There's something there, it's a crow." "Boss, your crow is really good at hiding." Yuan. Being only a few meters away from the black crow, Daisy had to concentrate and calm her mind to notice it, meaning the chances for a fourth-order peak strongman of her caliber to detect the crow were extremely low. Moreover, black crows were expendable, even if discovered, it was no big deal as long as they weren't all found out. Daisy ran to the street lamp below, looking up and pondering. Yuan also fell into thought. Does Daisy really represent a fourth-order peak strongman? The environment of the secret realm was after all rudimentary but still safe. After the evolutionary radiance had subsided, Sophia was immersed in a mysterious state for a good while before she finally woke up. After she woke up, Yuan didn't pause but immediately arranged for the third person, Lian Yu, to undergo evolution. Crouching down, Lian Yu too transformed into light. Ding! Notification: your troop Lian Yu has bathed in the miracle light, evolved into an epic 2 stars life form, and awakened the epic talent Extreme in Moonlight. Extreme in Moonlight. Description: under this talent, all of Lian Yu's Moon series skills receive a moderate enhancement. Moreover, Lian Yu can absorb moonlight to draw upon the power of the moon. This lunar power can significantly enhance the great force of Moon series skills and can also replenish the duration of special Moon series skills or reset their cooldowns. This talent provided Lian Yu with an all-encompassing boost. If Arrow of Polar Star is considered a Star Series Strongman, and Sophia a Night Series Strongman, then Lian Yu would be a Moon Series Strongman. Her main abilities are all closely associated with the moon. The most important thing is, after this talent absorbs the power of the moon, it seems that it can reset the cooldown of the epic skill Crescent Moon Giant Wolf. Lian Yu's Crescent Moon Giant Wolf is apparently no less powerful than Yuda's physical shackles in terms of bursts and enhancements. The duration of Crescent Moon Giant Wolf is even longer and does not have obvious side effects. However, in contrast to this overwhelmingly powerful transformation, the cooldown time for the Crescent Moon Giant Wolf skill is extremely long. The duration of the Crescent Moon Giant Wolf is fixed and does not depend on the amount of energy one has. Once the power of the moon transformation is exhausted, it will naturally recover over time. At present, once Lian Yu transforms, the cooldown period can be as long as several days. Without the ability to transform, Lian Yu is merely a decently strong fighter. Lian Yu is also aware of her weakness and has accidentally developed an advanced skill that allows her to transform into a smaller moon wolf. However, this still does not make up for the defect of the Crescent Moon Giant Wolf. But now it's possible. If Lian Yu uses the power of the moon to initiate the Crescent Moon Giant Wolf transformation, she can choose to shorten the duration of the skill to reduce the consumption of moon power. In this way, her tactical value will be significantly enhanced. Moreover, the Crescent Moon Giant Wolf is already known for its speed. As they run under the moonlight, stepping on moonbeams and turning into streaks of light, few can match their speed. What if Lian Yu used the power of the moon to further boost her speed while transformed by stepping on the moon? The three of them have Sophia's long-range recon, the likelihood of encountering danger has been greatly reduced. And in the rare case they encounter an enemy of the legendary realm or even multiple legendary realm monsters, as long as Sophia and 17 ride on Lian Yu, with the full force of the moon's power unleashed, they will have the capability to escape. Now, Yuan feels more at ease as well. After evolving Sophia and the two other companions, Yuan consecutively baptized and evolved Bone 2, Bone 3, and Bone 4 of the three skeletal. They awakened epic talents that are subordinate to King's Might called Lord's Might, which are still extraordinary. With this talent, Bone 3 Wave and Nigolasi both ignited the Light of Will. The Light of Will on Bone 2 also saw significant improvement. Naturally, they also used the lingering effect of the evolutionary miracle to truly get started with the extreme training method, quickly refining their bodies with the power of this mystery skill and advancing towards the fourth order limit of the extreme realm. Among the three, Bone 4 now possesses both the Light of Will and a domain, making him a solid quasi-legendary strong figure. He is not a legendary seed or a legendary figure but is a quasi-legendary who is assured to break through in 2 months. Such a quasi-legendary figure in his Tianyuan territory was now too numerous to count on both hands. Yuan glanced at the remaining evolution points, there were still over 40,000 left. The Water Mirror Dragon Daifu's contribution points are still lacking a bit, but she's been very motivated lately. Lord Jun from the Tianyuan territory's veteran cadre already had enough contribution points. Initially, it was difficult to gather enough Flight Series evolution points, but now, Yuan of course needed to arrange the baptism for Lord Jun. Lord Jun was performing reconnaissance outside and seemed to be on his way back. Boom! The vast power of heaven and earth suddenly exploded into brilliant fireworks. Lord Jun glanced behind at the shining flames, its feathers standing on end. Harnessing the wind, it became the wind, a streak of green light that, in the blink of an eye, flew out thousands of kilometers and left the dumbfounded Jackal Man legend far behind. That nearly scared the bird to death. But as expected of Lord Jun, I easily escaped from the hands of a legendary realm figure. Humph, just any Jackal Man legend thinks they can catch your grandfather Jun? They're 10,000 years too early. The Jackal Man legend watched as the green bird that had slipped away in an instant covered tens of thousands of meters. He instinctively chased after it, took 2 steps, and then stopped. Enough. He carried an even more important responsibility on his shoulders, needing to report the results of his contact with Ancestor Tree Blood to the envoy. He didn't have the luxury of time to chase a trivial 4-order large bird. With a cold huff, he went towards the secret location of the fang of the Jackal Wolf. Hidden place fang of the Jackal Wolf. The esteemed king of the Jackal Wolf sat in a side position, bowing his head in respect to the entity on the main seat. The chief seat now held an even more massive throne, upon which coiled a huge, blood-red giant dragon over 100 meters long, with writhing flesh buds visible on its body. This was the envoy. An envoy from Dragon Sleep Valley. Dragon Sleep Valley is also a major overlord power, but there is a stark difference between overlord powers. In front of Dragon Sleep Valley, their little Jackal Wolf race dare not claim to be overlords. Dragon Sleep Valley is also the support for powers such as their Fang of the Jackal Wolf and Blood Snake in case. In their Eternal Life faction of TNG, Dragon Sleep Valley is a particularly strong force. Of course, setting aside the identity of the envoy from Dragon Sleep Valley, the envoy's own strength is a reason for the King of the Jackal Wolf's awe. The King of the Jackal Wolf is at the pinnacle Earth realm with a domain radius exceeding 5,000 meters, with the qualifications to forge the God base and ignite the God Soul flame to step into the Legend Spirit Soul realm. He just dares not ignite it. The envoy is at the peak among legendary figures of Heaven and Earth realm, but his domain radius already exceeds 8,000 meters. The envoy also possesses the great body of a giant dragon, and with power far surpassing his own. If they were to fight, the King of the Jackal Wolf reckons he could last only 10 moves, perhaps 5, or even just 3 against the envoy. Now that the envoy has arrived, the little human race powers, including those of the elves and giants, can be wiped out with a flick of a finger. Of course, if the King of the Jackal Wolf were to take action, he wasn't without the ability to defeat the human forces. He wasn't afraid to die, he was just. After these days of probing, we have confirmed that the entrance to the human hiding place is within this area. As long as we pinpoint the location of the human nest, we can eliminate all these annoying beings and present you with the most sumptuous human feast. The servant dragon Sleep slightly opened his eyes and exhaled twice. MHM. Don't make this lord wait too long. And don't forget to find the passage to the dim yellow plains domain, otherwise. A suffocating pressure swept through the hall like a gale. Deep in the wilderness, in a land shrouded in red mist. Here, a towering stronghold stood erect, like a nail firmly hammered into the forefront of the red mist. No matter how the surrounding red mist eroded or the tides surged, the towering stronghold stood timeless. This was an official exploring stronghold. It was also the true front line for the Tai Xian Alliance in their fight against monster power. Inside the fortress, fully armed, splendidly equipped elite warriors bustled about. High-order troops, such as Black Knights and explosive flame mages, which were rare sights in the outside world, were relatively common here. There were also many pioneer group powerhouses and veteran lords coming and going, buzzing with activity. The lords of Ba Long and Lord Wuji were both in this war zone. In the pioneer group, neither were weak, but having only started participating in the pioneering campaigns in the last 2 months, they were still green hands compared to many of their predecessors. The recent battles have been getting fiercer. Ba Long remarked wistfully. Wuji nodded slightly, indeed. The elders say that over the past 6 months, the scarlet mist tide has been steadily moving southward. In the vicinity of this stronghold, there used to be only wisps of red mist drifting by, not the pervasive red mist we have now, even when it's not the disaster moon period. It seems that as the scarlet mist tide moves southward, more and more high-order monsters and legendary monsters are emerging from the deeper domains. Because of this, the pressure on the frontline pioneer groups was immense. Even in the combined forces of several exploring strongholds facing the monster forces led by Dragon Sleep Valley, they could only maintain a defensive stance and felt increasingly pressured. Monsters were endless and fearless of death. Maintaining high-intensity combat over an extended period, the balance of power would tip, and their disadvantages would gradually increase. The top brass of the pioneer group had indeed ventured deep into the red mist land to attempt to break the deadlock, but for living beings, it was difficult to penetrate the viscous red mist, and their several attempts to strike down the tyrant leaders had all ended in failure. Thinking too much about the big picture is pointless for us, the bigwigs above will have a solution. Lord Wuji paused. Rather, we should use the swords in our hands to slay more enemies and enhance our own strength. Ba Long nodded. That's indeed true. We're facing great pressure in combat right now, but the rewards are astonishing. First, our progress is evident from the high-intensity battles, and second, we can exchange our merits for treasures rarely seen outside to enhance ourselves. I've heard. Brother Wuji, have you created your domain yet? Wuji slightly bowed his head and smiled. Ba Long expressed immense envy. Brother Wuji was already a light of will with a domain, and at the fourth order peak no less. It might only be a few months before he could step into the legendary realm. Entering the eternal world and stepping into the legendary realm within 3 to 4 years had only been achieved by the Lord of Hanyu City and the Fading Sword Master in the past decade. But now, it is said that the Lord of Raoshan from Yushan is already at the precipice of a legendary being. My Xian dragon descendant has also ignited the light of will, but who knows when he will be able to create his domain. The number of young lords and commanders eligible to step into the legendary realm was not limited to just a few. This was unimaginable in the past. This was the opportunity amid the crisis. At this moment, Ba Long thought of Lord Tianyuan. Tianyuan was the strongest of their generation. It's said that Tianyuan had some issues, otherwise, we might be able to gather at the exploring stronghold by now. Then again, once Tianyuan joins the pioneer group in the future, we'll be the veterans with illustrious military exploits. That was another way to surpass Tianyuan. Thinking about it was indeed exciting. Chapter 353, The Fastest Working Dragon and Tianyuan. Tianyuan Calendar, the first year, day 336. It was also the 6th day after Tianyuan territory was upgraded to level 5. These days, Mu Yuan had been contacting Sophia 2 to 3 times a day on average. With the clue of the Rampage lockdown zone, Sophia now had a more direct target while exploring and searching. These were regions where energy was incredibly turbulent, often giving rise to tides of danger and extremity. Previously, such areas were not the main focus of Sophia's search. She had been concentrating on the clue of the Black Giant Peaks. Raging energy and perpetually catastrophic lands were inherently unsuitable for territories to thrive in peace, so it was improbable for Tianyuan territory to be located within these extreme locations. But what if these dangerous and extreme lands not only had the visible extent but also contained mysteries and hidden passages? Mu Yuan had taken a basic geography course about the eternal world through online teaching channels. And he roughly knew that the domains within the eternal world were very distant from each other, separated by vast spatial gaps. Often, only through specific tunnels or bridges could the lords reach another domain. Therefore, without using places like secret realms as transit points, it would be incredibly difficult for a lord to transport large quantities of goods to another domain. I digress. When the Rakshasa tried crossing the Furious region, he could distinctly observe changes in the space. He, including the legendary giant Asolo, had the intuition that by crossing the Frenzied Belt, they could reach a brand new region. So, could there be passages within the Frenzied area? Could some of the perilous and harsh lands in the Twilight Dominion be exactly the Frenzied area that Rakshasas saw? Based on this speculation, Mu Yuan didn't solely rely on guesses. He always believed that no matter how deteriorated his situation was, his territory could not have moved half a domain or a whole extra domain away. There was only one truth. After a few days, Sophia actually made a discovery rather quickly. They found an area very similar to the turbulent energy belt he described. They are now carefully probing deeper into it. Mu Yuan didn't hold high expectations. What Sophia found might not necessarily be the frenzied area. Even if it was, it's not guaranteed that the region contains the so-called passages. Search slowly, wait patiently. Months had passed, and Mu Yuan was no longer as anxious as he initially was. He occasionally read newspapers published by Tai Xian to stay informed about the external market. Over the past few days, he also upgraded important structures like the Staff of Divine Right, Intermediate Mage Tower, Thunder Magnetic Coil Tower, and Necromancy Tower to LV5, one after another. Upgrading miracle buildings didn't take long, nor did they require any rare materials, it merely required consuming a sum of soul crystals. But The amount of soul crystals consumed was not insignificant. For example, upgrading an arrow tower from LV4 to LV5 required 2,000 grams of soul sand, equivalent to 2 soul crystal coins. It might not seem much, but the total number of arrow towers in Tianyuan territory was well over 1,000. Scatter these thousands of arrow towers along the territory walls and various regions, and they no longer seem as plentiful. Of course, Yuan didn't intend to maximize the level of every arrow tower and watchtower. For arrow towers established outside the city walls, serving the purpose of vigilance and defense against sporadic monsters, he usually only upgraded them to LV2. City wall arrow towers in ordinary farmland are always at risk of destruction, after all. But even after excluding some non-essential miracle buildings from full upgrades, upgrading all the remaining ones would still require thousands of soul crystals. Yuan found it to be quite expensive. Even as a man with mines, he was unable at the moment to fully upgrade all miracle buildings. He also needed to keep at least 1,000 soul crystals in reserve for war, as well as purchase and stockpile a large quantity of potions, crossbow bolts, ammunition, equipment, and other war supplies. Master Li's factory had been operating around the clock, but Yuan had to purchase the vast majority of war supplies externally. The volume of his purchases was so large that often not a single intermediary seller could fulfill the entire order. "Bro, big bro, how much war supplies have you bought? This could be enough for a massive war involving millions." Zhang Loxing was astonished. In front of him lay the supplies that Yuan commissioned a senior lord to purchase. The amount was so great that even using Universal Type 3 spatial storage boxes, they filled a total of 16 boxes. Some lords couldn't help but move aside, fearing that the explosives inside might suddenly go off. "It's not much, not much. Some of it I'm also buying for others as a middleman," Yuan explained. "Oh, I see," Zhang Loxing realized. He had heard that Boss Tianyuan had met several vitality forces in the new territory. If he was acting as a middleman for other forces, that made sense. His territory had also undergone relocation, but why hadn't he encountered any elf misses? He too wanted to buy for elves, even a 10.5% discount would do. Yuan wasn't just making it up. Indeed, a part of the batches of war supplies he purchased was for the elves and giants. As war approached, in order to increase their chances of victory and secure more room for survival and development, both races were determined. About 40% of the war supplies were funded by them for purchase. Yuan, the middleman, made no profit from the markup. He would have liked to profit from the price difference, but the living conditions of the elves and giants were only slightly better than that of the feathermen, still quite a bit away from being wealthy. The vast powers of the natural garden and giant stone ridge, in terms of conventional wealth, might even be less than many of the great lords in Taishan. With both races being so impoverished, what could he do? He could only continue to buy on their behalf without earning a penny in markup. Rather, the elves and giants are spending a significant amount of money on war materials as a foundation for preparing for a conflict. If they are too hesitant to spend money on war materials, Yuan would have to question their resolve in combating the monster overlord. He himself purchased even more. During the war, all kinds of recovery potions, arrows, and ammunition must be adequately prepared. A lack of supplies leading to a drop in combat power and subsequently heavy casualties would indeed be too late for regrets. If it's a defensive battle, ranged troops can play a more significant role. Even something as powerful as the arrow of Polar Star needs to be replicated using high-grade arrows to mass-produce advanced arrows. This time, Yuan had purchased a batch of rare-level armor-piercing arrows, barrier-breaking arrows, fury flame arrows, and invisible arrows for the arrow of Polar Star to use. If it's a siege, items like the breaking boundary stone are indispensable. The armor, swords, spears, and shields of the melee troops also need to have at least 3 sets of spares. This is because more than half of the elites still aren't equipped with rare equipment, so Yuan could only match them with reinforced +3 ordinary level equipment to make do. Besides, rare equipment is not necessarily durable and is still prone to damage. A large number of equipment claims would be filed after the war. At this moment, Yuan felt that the skeleton series was truly the high-cost performance type of troops. Little skeletons saved money and hassle, and the skeleton morticians could extract their own bones to use as weapons. Nowadays, they mainly use their own bones plus some added minerals to smelt a bone sword, and when it comes to saving money, they are arguably the strongest. While Yuan was busy purchasing, the others in Tianyuan territory were not idle either. Wolf Head Mountain had become the operational center for the 3 major forces. To facilitate communication and coordinate tactics, high-level characters from both the Natural Garden and Giant Stone Ridge regularly stationed themselves here. The representative from Natural Garden was a 4th Order limit with a legendary stature and Moon Elf bloodline. The Moon Elf god archer Lin En. The representative from Giant Stone Ridge was also a young 4th Order talent, the Frost Giant Bainta. Both were super-powered beings. Facing ordinary 4th Order leaders, they possessed overwhelming strength. Proud and powerful as they were, they couldn't exhibit even a trace of arrogance on Wolf Head Mountain. Moon Elf god archer Lin En, having witnessed the extraordinary grace of Tian Yuan powerhouses in the Temple of Knowledge, took several days to recover from the shock. How could he dare to be arrogant here? Even though the giant Bainta had not personally witnessed the splendid battle achievements of Tian Yuan's powerhouses, he had heard plenty about them. Perhaps if only 1 or 2 people claimed such feats, there could be exaggeration or boasting involved, but when everyone said the same, he had no room for doubt. Besides, Giant Bainta glanced into the distance and saw a tall, elegantly formed blue giant dragon slowly landing on the summit of Wolf Head Mountain. Even from afar, he could faintly sense the dragon's presence radiating from the blue giant dragon. This was a purebred giant dragon. Giant Bainta harbored the ambition to reach the peak. He believed that his future could match that of a pureblood giant dragon, and surpassing one was not impossible. But for now, he was at the 4th Order peak, and so was the blue giant dragon. No matter how proud he may be, he couldn't claim that he could defeat a giant dragon in direct combat. Have you finished checking this batch of goods? If there's no issue, I'll be leaving, said the water mirror dragon, Daifu, in front of Niu Si, the leader of the defensive troops stationed at Wolf Head Mountain. Niu Si nodded. The count is correct, but you're leaving so soon? I thought the task of transporting the spoils back to the territory wasn't until this afternoon. He seemed to remember correctly. Currently, Tian Yuan Territory's 3rd Transport Team was responsible for delivering batches of war materials to Wolf Head Mountain and for packaging and sending back materials, remnant souls and other spoils from the front lines to the territory. They ran 2 trips a day. The job of the water mirror dragon, Daifu, was to use her abilities to cover the transport team, to avoid detection by the possibly lurking Jackal Man scouts. Having delivered a load, the transport team would rest on Wolf Head Mountain. I'll be here on time in the afternoon, Daifu said, and with those words, her figure gradually faded into the mist, and she flew away. As she was flying, she lifted her claw and glanced at the personal wristband tied around it, which displayed the contribution points she had accumulated in a list of tasks assigned to her. At 12 p.m., I need to assist Miss Ilo in inspecting and upgrading the city's defense mechanisms. At 6 p.m., I have to cover a squad going to a target area to trade with the elves. At 10 p.m. At 11 p.m. Calculating with her claws, Daifu mused, seems I still have some free time, I should take on 2 more tasks. This one, to water the 6th planting zone, is good, it's worth a whopping 250 contribution points. I need to hurry back to the territory to snag the task, whoever gets it earns it. And this task? At this rate, I should have enough in about 2.5 days to apply for an evolutionary baptism with my contributions, this is just too exciting for a dragon. It fluttered its wings and returned discreetly to Tian Yuan territory, ready to start the next task. Atop Wolf Head Mountain, leaders from the Tian Yuan territory, elves and giants were engaged in heated discussions. Before them, the vast map already had several conspicuous red circles drawn on it. Some of those red circles were marked with a large X. They were narrowing down the location of the Wolf Fang lair. The skirmishes between Tian Yuan territory and the Jackal men were not just for strategic space, concurrently, they were tracking down hidden bases of the Jackal men, along with their core lair. To truly defeat the Jackal men, it was necessary to locate their lair. Thanks to intelligence from the elves and giants, they had initially defined a search area, which they were now steadily shrinking. However, as the area narrows, the danger significantly increases. In recent days, 3 of our high-order scouts from the Natural Garden have been sacrificed. The elf Lin En looked grave. It was not easy to train high-order scouts, and some of them were his acquaintances, like Taili, the top scout of the Natural Garden. Even someone like Taili, who was at the 4th Order limit and skilled in stealth and reconnaissance, faced grave danger venturing into these areas. In these areas, the scouts could encounter beings from the legendary realm at any time. Under the influence of the legendary domain, the superior stealth abilities of top scouts almost lost their significance. But if beings from the legendary realm were to go, The Vitality Force's legendary realm beings were already few in number. Should they expose themselves to the risk of being surrounded and killed, the price of such a loss was something they could not afford. We from the Tianyuan territory have dispatched a leader capable of flight and possessing extreme speed to scout the area. The rotational representative from Tianyuan territory, Lu Lu, spoke up. The elves and giants knew which leader it was, having seen him in the past few days. The Falcon General, Jun. The leader who held the title of the fastest in Tianyuan. This Falcon General Jun seemed even more legendary than they were. However, no matter how fast Falcon General Jun was, he was still just a 4th order peak strongman. This reconnaissance mission he undertook was fraught with too much risk. He must have gone with the resolve to sacrifice himself. The elves and giants felt respect when they thought of this. Scared the life out of me, your Lord Jun, but I am the one you will never catch. Come on, come and chase me. Jun soared across the azure sky, facing a legendary realm werewolf whose domain was already spread wide. He was resolute and fearless, embodying the spirit of intrepid audacity. What was one way 3 days ago could be another today, and Jun was no longer the same after 3 days. He was Lord Jun, able to leap repeatedly before one of the legendary realm, brazen yet undying. Epic 2 stars life wings of the Wind King Jun. Soaring 9 heavens. Explanation: Jun can borrow the power of the azure wind to ascend above the soaring 9 heavens. When mastered to a profound degree, a strongman can cross 90,000 miles in an instant by riding the wind. Of course, Jun was far from being able to ride the wind for 90,000 miles. He could not possibly cultivate this epic skill to the great perfection. But Jun, borrowing the wind, controlling the wind, becoming the wind, had thoroughly shown the essence of the Wind King. His combat power was not strong, and his stealth ability was weak, but he had one forte. He was fast. Extremely fast. Thanks to Jun's reckless scouting, they had further narrowed down the area of the Wolf Fang lair. 2 days later, Yuan received another piece of good news. It came from Sophia. Sophia had confirmed the region she discovered was indeed the Furious region. She saw the scene where the sky and the earth were about to meet and the space was dislocated and folded. However, she was facing the same problem as the Rakshasa. They couldn't continue forward any longer. Chapter 354, Sophia's Return. Sophia's black crow flew swiftly, and thanks to its phantom night eyes talent, it could also dodge some of the energy tides. Through the tireless, relentless, die and die again black crow, the speed of exploration was quite fast, and she gradually became certain that at the core of this furious region, there existed a passage to another domain. The deeper we go, the closer the distance between the sky and the earth becomes, and at the most central part the distance might be less than 100 meters. She rode on the back of Lian Yu, gazing into the distance. Lian Yu was responsible for dodging, 17 for vigilance, and she for observation. The 3 of them penetrated deeper with their fiery combination technique, and even managed to find a gap where the energy tides were sparse, but that was as far as they could go. Unless we possess the power of the legendary realm, otherwise, it's impossible to shatter the energy tides and move deeper across this region. Sophia furrowed her brows. The 3 of them together had the capability to stand against, and even defeat, ordinary legends, but, even if they could defeat an ordinary legend, in terms of force, energy, and endurance, they were far inferior to true legends. While traversing, they had to tear open the energy tides. Only Lian Yu was capable of doing so among them, but Lian Yu had to erupt in power, far from the free and easy mastery of a true legend. It's not that simply tearing through the energy tides and charging deeper would allow them to pass through. She concluded that even if the passage existed, its area wouldn't be very large, which meant they needed sufficient strength to search carefully at the core of this dangerous zone. Their strength was obviously not enough. Yuan pondered whether to send General Deadbone on a trip to the Furious region, but the current situation was tense, and that region was extremely far from their territory. For Deadbone to make the journey there, it would take at least 2 days. 2 days wasn't long, but if the battle situation changed, Tianyuan territory without General Deadbone present would be fatally weakened. Besides, the Furious region here is far more expansive than the dangerous zone Sophia and her team have discovered. In such a vast area, searching for a possible passage would undoubtedly consume a lot of time. This was one of his hesitations. Ultimately, it's because Tianyuan territory doesn't have enough legendary warriors. If he had 8 or 10 legendary generals, there wouldn't be such a significant decrease in the security of the territory due to the absence of 1 or 2 people. Still too weak. However, if Tianyuan territory had already birthed 8 or 10 legendary warriors, he would have counterattacked against Fang of the Jackal Wolf by now instead of slowly probing. Unable to make up his mind, Mu Yuan decided to discuss it with General Deadbone, Liu Lu, and Ilo. He certainly did have many capable assistants as a lord. Ilo said with exasperation, I'm already overwhelmed with the affairs of my domain, and my knowledge of the external battlefield is still a day and a half old. Asking me about this is useless. I haven't even finished arranging tasks for the more than 10,000 new territory citizens. Lord, you should think about it, if these people's jobs are delayed even by a day, the domain loses a day's earnings. Do you think I have the spare time to consider anything else? She had a point. Go ahead and get busy then. Mu Yuan saw off Ilo and turned to look at Liu Lu, who had just returned. Liu Lu shared some intelligence from the elves and giants. He added, June had an accident, ambushed by a legendary creature. It claimed the legend attacked it, tricking this young hawk and causing it significant injury. It might not be able to enter those dangerous zones for some time. Although in his view, Jun's injury had a lot to do with it being too reckless and flamboyant. Liu Lu, through the shared vision with June, had seen all of it. But then again, June was not small in size, surrounded by a halo of azure divine light when flying, so keeping a low profile might indeed be difficult. Liu Lu said, these past few days, June has encountered a few legendary creatures, but as a result, we've recorded information about these legends, including their appearance, domains, and so on. Mu Yuan took the intelligence Liu Lu presented. Upon inspection, it was especially detailed, exceedingly so. It included the entire process of Jun's encounters with legendary creatures, to the extent that it detailed the posture of June in flight, the enemy's flying speed, precisely in meters per second, whether the enemy first raised their left or right hand when striking, the enemy. Wait. The battle reports Liu Lu handed over had at least 2,000 words each, and some had 4,000, 6,000, or even more. They also included Liu Lu's hand-drawn legendary domain portraits. When did Liu Lu learn to draw? No, that's not important. Didn't he ask Liu Lu to come over to hear his opinion? How did it turn into a work report? Why don't I give it a try? Suggested Liu Lu. I might be able to withstand the energy tides. He might. However, Liu Lu wasn't known for his speed, and even if he could withstand the energy tides, how many times could he bear it? The problems he would face diving into the furious region were similar to those of Sophia and her team. Asking Liu Lu might have been futile, and Mu Yuan had no choice but to contact General Deadbone. Deadbone, what do you think? General Deadbone was currently deep in the wilderness, also chasing down the lair of Fang of the Jackal Wolf. June was the scout in the open. Mu Yuan had never counted on finding the enemy's lair with just June or scouts from the elves and giants. The one he had been counting on was Deadbone. The significance of Jun's investigation, more often than not, was to create opportunities for Deadbone. And Deadbone, yesterday, had already discovered an important clue pointing to the Wolf Fang lair in a designated suspicious area. Once they found the enemy's lair, and after Ilo and Liu Lu and other captains stepped into the legendary realm, he would be able to lead an army against Wolf Fang. Through the spiritual link, he made contact with Deadbone, thousands of kilometers away, in a moment of thought. The steady voice of Deadbone soon came through. Gu has found some things these past 2 days that are very likely not creatures of Jackal Man's strength. It had a bit of an ominous premonition. Gu needs to observe for a few more days. Heading south to the frenzied blockade region at this time would pose a significant risk. Without a clear understanding of the situation, General Deadbone would not be at ease. Within the overlord power of the Wolf Fang, not all were Jackal Man strongmen, there were also a few non-direct Jackal Wolf descendants who were fourth-order strongmen, even of the legendary realm. But, since Deadbone had said so, there was surely a reason for it. Heading south was no longer suitable. He could only let Sophia and the other two search slowly, and if it really didn't work out, they would return to Shilling City to cultivate. Half a day later, Sophia sent another message. Hope was on the horizon. There was hope of breaking through the blockade. Out in the wilderness, an elite corps of over 100 spread out, searching for clues, traces, or valuable materials. In command of this corps was Shen Linglong, a newly minted legend of the Taishan Alliance, a 7th-level Great Lord who had already killed 2 legendary realm monsters. A super strongman. Shen Linglong widened her eyes as she stared at the pure black crow in front of her, capable of singing, dancing, and writing in Taishan secret language, and let out a long sigh of amazement. Ah! After some communication and confirmation, Shen Linglong and Sophia's three-person team met up. Soon, she understood why Sophia and her team appeared here, braving great danger. They had penetrated thousands of miles into the wilderness, searching for the way home and the path to rescue their lord. It was admirable. And it was enviable. The captains of the Tianyuan family not only had the capability to venture into the wilderness, but more importantly, they were able to follow the scant clues they had, exploring and analyzing along the way, and finding the critical location. What kind of loyal ministers were these? Shen Linglong looked to her side at her capable major general. It was a massive rocky life form resembling a spherical shape but with short, thick limbs. Longian giant beast. If I went missing, would you all venture thousands of miles into the wilderness without a second thought to search for me? She looked at them intently. The Longian giant beast blinked its large eyes innocently, emitting a clueless, "Hey." Shen Linglong exhaled, resting her forehead in her hand. Why were all her subordinates so brainless and brutish? Tired at heart and with no reliable subordinates, Shen Linglong could only discuss strategies with Sophia. Sophia would say one thing, and she would respond. Sophia would say 10 things, and she would give one reply. Sophia said, "Based on my judgment, we only need to start from here, here, and here. By breaking through the energy tides and the direction of the spatial folds, there's an 80% chance of finding the legendary passage. Linglong, what do you think?" Sophia's words, each individually familiar to her, somehow, when put together, became incomprehensible. Shen Linglong thought for 3 seconds. Shen Linglong gave up on thinking. "Yes, yes, yes, let's proceed with your strategy." She said it expressionlessly. The Longian giant beast beside her listened blankly, displaying no expression either. For a moment, the figures of one person and one giant overlapped. Boom! 2 hours later, Shen Linglong and Sophia's 4-member team had already arrived deep in dangerous territory. Riding on the backs of Crescent Moon, they swiftly moved, dodging waves of crashing energy tides. Sometimes, when they couldn't dodge, Shen Linglong would brandish a halberd, twice as tall as she was, accumulating the power of heaven and earth to shatter the waves. The 100 elite members and captains under Shen Linglong's command were not present. She stored the elites in her own Great Lord's mark space. After all, the energy here was incredibly turbulent, and the tides unceasing. The elites would not only fail to be of help here, but they would become a significant burden. She, a legend, could not protect too many people, 2 or 3 were her limit. However, Shen Linglong soon realized upon delving deeper that Sophia and her 2 companions did not really need her protection. Rather than saying she was protecting the 3 of them, it was more accurate to describe it as a collective effort. The girl named Lian Yu, a white wolf, was incredibly fast. Without this white wolf girl, she would have had to rely on her giant halberd to shatter the tides and forge a path repeatedly, which would have taken several times more effort than now. Conserving energy was equivalent to safety. The girl named Sophia could summon black crows, which provided them with additional eyes, ensuring they didn't run around like headless flies. Among the 3, it was only the taciturn archer, 17, who seemed rather ordinary, but he was also a 4th-order strongman. Damn, the Tianyuan family sure had too many excellent generals. But with their 3 main forces scattered, wasn't the situation in Tianyuan territory worse than imagined? Thinking this, Shen Linglong's gaze became resolute. The heavy responsibility of breaking through the channel must fall to her. Boom! The energy tides crashed down, one after another. The sky was filled with 7 colors. The distance between heaven and earth was very close, as if they might collapse at any moment. In this region, where the roaring never ceased and not a single monster could be seen, 3 people and a wolf moved at breakneck speed. They weaved, they searched, they advanced. Sophia was the conductor, White Wolf Sickle Moon was the supermount, and Shen Linglong, wielding her giant halberd, became a core-powered road opener, shattering every tide that stood in their way. The scale of this dangerous area was not large. Even though the interior space was different, and the actual area was much larger than what was seen from the outside, it was still not as vast as the frenzied area that blocked the whole Black Giant Peak region. With Shen Linglong, a legend present, understanding the whole core zone was not difficult, it was just a matter of time. What Sophia was truly worried about was whether the legendary passage actually existed. She had asked Shen Linglong. Shen Linglong, enigmatic, had said, it might exist, or it might not. The energy continued to roar. The chaotically flying elemental particles and the converging and dispersing streams greatly hindered the explorer's sight. Sophia, with her epic abilities, could still observe the surroundings clearly. She maintained a high level of focus, having gone 18 hours without rest and barely blinking. In the distance, the sky seemed to press even lower, and the earth rose slightly, only a thin line separated heaven and earth, and this line seemed to stretch infinitely, like a deep valley winding road without end. Could that be the passage? Sophia tugged on the fur on the right side of Sickle Moon's head, charged to that direction. Sickle Moon rushed straight ahead. As they advanced, the line between heaven and earth vanished from view, the surging energy tides on either side appeared not much different than before, but the energy tides are more turbulent. Even more chaotic than the most violent region of the core area we passed through earlier. Initially, in the Furious region, she had thought about looking for a thin tide area, but since the core area of the dangerous territory was only so big, crossing straight through or circumnavigating it didn't make much of a difference. Perhaps, the more turbulent area was the correct target? After dozens of seconds of rushing with Sickle Moon, Sophia confirmed her guess. They were walking on a stretched-out spatial road. We need to speed up. Howl. The white wolf howled, emitting a pure moon-white radiance. Her body size grew threefold, transforming into an even more majestic and holy crescent moon giant wolf. White wolf Sickle Moon's speed surged several folds, becoming wind, becoming light. Shen Linglong also constantly swung her giant halberd. The halberd condensed 100-meter-long golden light, slashing and shattering the oncoming tides relentlessly. She was ablaze with fervor as well. Dozens of seconds. Hundreds of seconds. Sickle Moon sprinted with all her might, not dodging, hesitating, or caring for anything, just dashing straight ahead, becoming moon shadow luminance. She needed to be fast, faster, even faster. She was not sure how far she had run, but after sprinting at full speed for hundreds of seconds, the surging energy tides around her were no longer so violent. Ahead, the distance between the sky and earth was slowly widening. By this point, the energy tides posed no threat. Sickle Moon returned to a slightly smaller giant wolf form and continued to carry the three of them as they rushed forward. The energy tides behind them gradually thinned out. The ground began to show specks of green, and the howls of monsters came from afar. They had burst out of the energy turbulence area. But had they succeeded? We did it. Looking at the undulating strange mountains in the distance, Sophia said with certainty. Chapter 355, The Dire Situation in the Tianyuan Territory. We've already passed through the Furious region and arrived at a new area. Shen Linglong took in her surroundings, eyes canvassing the undulating mountains and the dense jungle, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She could not spot the black peaks that reached into the sky as previously mentioned by Tianyuan. How could she be certain of this? Sophia said, the dangerous area we explored these past 2 days is well known to us, and I'm sure the terrain of these mountains is different from before. She was 100% sure. Sophia had ample confidence in her memory and observation skills. Besides, she had another piece of evidence that could prove they had passed through a spatial channel. Black crows. Before entering the dangerous area, she had left numerous created black crows in the vicinity. These crows could persist for a day or two. While they were navigating through the dangerous land, Sophia kept in close contact with the crows, constantly observing the scenes beyond through their eyes. It was her insurance policy. She had left varying numbers of black crows in every direction outside the dangerous land. In case a legendary monster appeared and headed towards them, they could at least retreat with composure or take advantage of the information to set up an ambush. Now, she had lost all contact with her created black crows, completely severed. This meant they had traversed a vast distance through space. This place must be an entirely different region. Of course, even so, she could not be certain that this was the region where her own territory was situated. After all, she had not seen the conspicuous black giants. She initiated the spiritual link. Within 2 seconds, she received an affirmative answer. We've found the right place. Sophia's face lit up with a smile, and the pressure on her shoulders lessened considerably. Flap flap. Wisps of black mist began to swirl around Sophia, from which crows with crimson eyes and black feathers flew out, vanishing into the landscape like droplets of water merging into a lake. So far, no dangers detected in the vicinity. As she spoke, She crouched down and pressed her hand onto the barren ground in front of her, channeling energy into it. In a blink, a crow feather mark emerged from the darkness, fading away slowly. "What are you doing?" asked Shen Linglong. "I am marking our location." Sophia paused before continuing. "I observed earlier that the furious region behind us is vast, spreading far to both the left and right sides without end in sight. Without some markings, finding the passage next time we come here will not be so easy." "Right." Only then did Shen Linglong realize what she had nearly forgotten, something as crucial as marking their trail. She glared at the Longian giant beast beside her. "You couldn't even give your lord a reminder." The Longian giant beast looked aggrieved. It had only just stepped out of the mark space. After Sophia had made enough marks, the group of several people and beasts started heading north. Roaming monsters gradually began to appear before them. Through the Black Crow's sight, they discovered groups of monsters and a few monster encampments. However, as they continued northward, the monster encampments became scarcer, replaced by large-scale monster tribes with numerous and towering walls, which could also be described as monster cities. A monster tribe of this scale is not simple at all. Shen Linglong observed the scene manifested by the Black Crow, her gaze sharpening slightly. She noticed the walls of the monster city, dark brown and towering, were covered in large patches of blood-red flesh that pulsed as if they had a life of their own, both grotesque and unnerving. It's as if the monsters have overtaken the territory of some creatures and built their tribe upon it. Such tribes would surely possess dozens of fourth-order bosses, and are bound to house some kind of flesh weapon. It wouldn't surprise me to encounter legendary realm monsters within. Shen Linglong had been part of the pioneer group and dealing with the foremost monster powers for over 2.5 years. She could tell at a glance that this was a force that had embarked on the Tao of Flesh. Sophia added, "Compared to the forces worshipping the fallen god, this kind of tribe is more troublesome. The latter, at most, summon avatars of the fallen god's servants. The true forms of the fallen god's servants can't come here, and I can slaughter as many avatars as they send. However, monster powers on the path of Tiankai eternal life might harbor some bizarre flesh weapons. Against such aberrant armaments, even as a legendary, she must proceed with the utmost caution. A moment of inattention could cause trauma to both body and soul." Once, a legendary realm potentate called Lord Shishui was struck by a ray of blood-colored light due to his carelessness. This potentate, standing over 2.5 meters tall with a robust figure and well-developed muscles, immediately, his belly swelled. And within half an hour, he gave birth to a flesh monster. It was said that had it not been for the timely rescue by other pioneer group potentates, Lord Shishui might have perished on the spot. Even so, despite having received thorough treatment and purification from a saint of holy light later on, it's said that the trauma to his soul has yet to heal fully. Who could recover from that? Times 4. Sophia and 17 were shocked. Lian Yu was stupefied. The Lord Shepherd, already in spiritual link, also felt it was too horrifying, wondering if Tiankai eternal life had such brutal methods. He realized he had not been careful enough in the past. Of course, even though these tribes are more difficult to conquer, they still can't stump me, the Great Lord. Shen Linglong said. If it weren't for the fact that they had urgent matters to attend to, she would have charged up and chopped down this monster tribe. What if they encountered a legendary monster? That would be even better, as her record of legendary kills could be +1. The group bypassed the large tribe and continued their journey northward. They crossed over mountains, rivers, and forests. With Sophia's Black Crow scouting ahead, their journey through the wilderness went very smoothly. They didn't even encounter any real battles, let alone dangers. However, powerful explorers, traveling deep into the wilderness, also tried to avoid battles as much as possible. Monsters were endless and undying, while the strength and energy of explorers had their limits. Sometimes, if avoidance was impossible, it meant they might be facing a major crisis. Therefore, even though their journey north was quite relaxed with Shen Linglong, a legendary powerhouse as support, Sophia was still on high alert. Besides, along the way, she had noticed some traces that might have been left by battles in the legendary realm. The group kept moving, running continuously for over 10 hours before taking a short rest. After resting for 1 or 2 hours and recuperating their energy, they hit the road again. The farther north they went, the more monsters they seemed to encounter. There were 3 times when Sophia couldn't find a detour, or the detour was too long, so they had to decisively eliminate the high-order monsters they met. In the world, the drifting red mist seemed to have increased, with visible red mist strands appearing and disappearing, repeating in this manner. In the distance, the sky was lightly veiled in ominous red. But when their gaze pierced through the ominous pale red and the murky fog, they could see towering, majestic black mountains, appearing and disappearing in the clouds. I didn't expect that within this dangerous land of raging energy, there would actually be a passageway leading to another region. Could this be another vast domain? Have we already left the Twilight Plains? Shen Linglong began to ponder. She had encountered such violently dangerous lands before, but they were barren lands where the environment was hazardous and not even a single treasure was found. Who would eagerly explore them? Who could have thought that within such a treacherous area, there existed a hidden world? Or was it that this particular place was unique? Shen Linglong couldn't come up with an answer. It wasn't because her mind was lacking, but because the eternal world was too mysterious and unpredictable. No one could guarantee what they would encounter during their explorations. Not to mention areas outside the territory of the Taishan Alliance, even within the territory, there were many regions yet to be explored. In these areas, explorers might stumble upon great opportunities, shooting up to the sky in success. Such lucky individuals emerged every year, and some even stepped into the legendary realm because of it. But even in parts of the territory where high-order monsters were rarely seen, explorers could still encounter great dangers. Sometimes treacherous and lethal areas would suddenly emerge, causing legendary powerhouses who entered them to perish. My Taishan Alliance isn't lacking in areas to explore and pioneer, but still, to have explored and pioneered a new route, a new area, and to report it, we should be able to gain a considerable amount of Alliance contribution, right? She muttered to herself. Rescuing Brother Tianyuan from danger and selling him a huge favor, and then gaining some extra Alliance contribution. This is a double joy. Heading north, after spending 2 nights and 3 days, the group gradually neared their destination. At this point, Sophia slowed down. They also met up with the general who came to rendezvous with them. It was Rakshasa. Rakshasa often moved south, responsible for clashing and negotiating with the powerhouses of the Blood Snake in case. He was more familiar with the situation in this area. Follow me. Under his lead, the team didn't continue north but instead took a wide detour to the east. In the area ahead, there's a legendary ambush set up. Rakshasa explained. He had seen enemy legends from afar there yesterday. He used the innate vanquishing evil to glimpse the towering evil deeds and thereby deduced, there were monsters among the enemies lying in ambush in that area. On his way here, he took another look and was certain that the legendary was still lying in wait. After bypassing that area, Rakshasa made detours to the east and west and yet, they inevitably bumped into some elite monster squads. From time to time, sounds of fighting and explosions arose from afar. Boom! The earth shook. Green and blood hues manifested in the distant sky, nearly splitting the heavens in two. It's a legendary battle. Shen Linglong's gaze hardened. A legendary battle had actually erupted in this place, and moreover, from the scale of both parties' domains, these two legends were clearly not weak. They were both 3,000-meter level powerhouses. The clash of legends erupted abruptly but also ended quickly, each retreating after only a few dozen seconds. The Rakshasa was used to it. In the past half-month, there had been no less than 18 legendary battles, with as many as 2 or 3 erupting in a single day. The enemy feared General Duo Lai and dared not linger. But their allied forces, lacking in legendary realm numbers, found it difficult to launch proactive strikes, leading to repeated stalemates. They could only wait for an opportunity. Now, with the arrival of a powerhouse from the Taishan, perhaps an opportunity had come? At the south city gate of Tianyuan territory. From afar, the figures of Sophia, Shen Linglong and the Rakshasa appeared, approaching swiftly. Mu Yuan was already there, waiting to meet them. After all, Lord Linglong had spent her own time and energy and had taken a certain risk to chase down clues for him. It was both logical and reasonable for him to offer her an enthusiastic reception. Although his own dead bone and Duo Lai's combat power was far superior to Shen Linglong's. It didn't mean that such a legend as Shen Linglong was no longer important. Fall back 10,000 steps, even if Shen Linglong would not play a significant role in the war, her presence signified that Tianyuan territory was reconnecting with the outside world. With the backing, hope emerged, and safety was assured. He was confident that in a few months, he could push through and overcome the monster overlord, stabilizing the territorial situation, but, if he could summon a powerhouse to crush the fang of the jackal wolf and the blood snake in case with the force of a thunderbolt, Mu Yuan would naturally choose the latter. Relying on oneself meant treading on thin ice every day. Relying on powerhouses meant fearing nothing. Even if, in requesting reinforcements from Taishan, he had to pay a price. Mu Yuan welcomed Sophia and the others with a feast to wash away the dust of their journey and arranged accommodation in the South District for Shen Linglong's party. 2 rare-level residential buildings. It was rare for outsiders to visit Tianyuan territory, but he couldn't always seal off and lock his land. A territory that wanted to grow had eventually to integrate with the outside world, and Mu Yuan had made preparations early. He had obtained some miracle blueprints from purifying the root of corruption and the blood pond, and used part of them in the South District, constructing detached villas, superior houses, hot springs, and parks. Types of miracle buildings designed for living. The next day, Mu Yuan learned of the current situation from Shen Linglong. As the integration with Langxing had been completed, the internal situation within the Taishan alliance had stabilized, but the front-line battles remained tense. The Scarlet Mist Tide was becoming more ferocious, with the potential to unleash a disaster of corruption similar to the one 61 years ago. In such a situation, many powerhouses were constrained at the front line, and summoning several legendary reinforcements was not an easy task. It was said that the Lord of Hanyu City had already ventured deep into the Red Mist Land, clashing dozens of times with the top beings among the monster overlords. I didn't expect the situation to be so severe. In light of this, he felt somewhat reluctant to ask for assistance, considering he still had a certain level of confidence. It's not that severe, said Shen Linglong. Not every lord is rushing to the front line without a second thought. Leave the matter of reinforcements to me. She slapped the steel sheet. She had also understood the current situation of Tianyuan territory, which could only be described as extremely difficult, surviving in the cracks. His neighbors were monster overlords. Luckily, there were still powerful vitality forces like elves and giants in this region. Otherwise, even if Tianyuan had been exceptional, it probably would have fallen long ago. Chapter 356, The Night Raven's Butler. Shen Linglong began to mobilize her contacts, reaching out to some old friends. However, as a young lord and one of the best among her peers, she didn't have many influential acquaintances. Most of them were holding important positions in the pioneer group or delving into dangerous lands, with little spare time. For a moment, figuring out where to find a few strong reinforcements truly gave her a headache. But she had already boasted about her capabilities, how could she admit to failure? She started mobilizing troops from within her own territory. Shen Linglong had 2 complete army soul corps at her disposal. Although it was impossible to transfer both trump cards over, having just 1 complete army soul corps meant she could exert a power far beyond an ordinary legendary being. By then, Shen Linglong would have no problem facing 2 or even 3 enemies on her own. She would display the posture of a war god in front of Tianyuan's young brother. Gaga. However, I didn't expect Tianyuan territory to be this lively. I heard they have passed the promotion trial and advanced to a level 5 city-level territory. That Tianyuan had passed the promotion trial was quite normal. When she applied for the promotion trial, her combined strength was probably not even comparable to Tianyuan's. Yet, she was still surprised that Tianyuan had managed to develop and expand its territory so quickly, stepping into the senior lord rank. Managing a territory is not just about being able to fight. Combat prowess is the most important ability, but several other skills are also indispensable. Once, she had accidentally allowed too many refugees to enter, causing the territory's citizens' satisfaction index to fall below the acceptable line, nearly resulting in an accident. But looking at Tianyuan City, internal conflicts among territory citizens were rare, with patrols and security teams maintaining order exceptionally well. She thought it was probably because there were too many troublemakers among the refugees she had taken in. There's always some troublesome citizens looking to stir up trouble. But in her forces, starting with generals like Yan Chu and the others, not one had political abilities over 60 points, being not in the negatives was already quite good. On the other hand, the generals from Tianyuan seemed to be very wise. She thought of Sophia. Generals like Sophia, who were intelligent, seemed to be present in Tianyuan territory, and there were even more generals with high combat strength. No wonder Tianyuan territory, despite facing a great disaster and persecution from the monster overlords, has still managed to hold on. Even with the elves and giants as powerful allies, such a situation was extremely difficult and dangerous. If it were an ordinary senior lord, let alone lasting 3 or 4 months, they might not even hold out for 1 or half a month. Moreover, The time since Tianyuan territory was established, seemed to be, apparently, roughly, not even a year yet. What was she doing at the 1-year mark? She seemed to be still developing the surrounding barren lands, still wrestling with small monster tribes. Shen Linglong, using the Lord Hero connection, contacted the main general she had left in charge of Linglong City and instructed them to go to her study, to take out communication items number 2, 6, and 11, and to make the calls. New area development, brothers, come quickly. In reality, if I were to use the prerogative for emergency assistance, it's not that I couldn't summon strong reinforcements, Mu Yuan pondered. The Tai-Xian alliance had been established for over 60 years and rose rapidly to stand alongside nations like Yongxing and Shenmu due to the unity of most lords and a reasonable and standardized contribution system. If a lord from the Tai-Xian alliance faced a major crisis, they could exercise the right to seek emergency assistance. At that time, lords from all around and officials strong individuals would come to their aid. The scale of the reinforcement forces also depended on the information provided by the lord when seeking emergency assistance. Of course, the lord using the right of emergency assistance would also have to pay a large sum of contributions, which, if insufficient, could be paid later without interest. The various lords and chosen strong individuals who came to assist would each receive some Tai-Xian contributions based on their strength and achievements. Mu Yuan could do the same. After all, it wasn't the Red Fog disaster moon, and the integration with Langxing had also passed smoothly. The front lines were urgent but not as dire as the first half of the year. If he invoked the power of emergency assistance, he could call for strong reinforcements. At most, he would have to overspend a huge amount in contributions. Mu Yuan was not afraid to overdraw, nor was he afraid he couldn't afford the exchange, it's just. Reinforcements could only solve immediate threats, but couldn't resolve the real difficulties at hand. Just like some lords with insufficient capabilities, unable to defend their territories, they couldn't possibly call for aid time and again. Reinforcement forces didn't have the time, nor could they stay long in the requesting lord's territory. Mu Yuan's situation was similar. Even if he could call on a dozen legendary realm fighters for help, what then? What could he do? Once the enemy retreated into the wilderness, he essentially couldn't find them. The location of the fang of the jackal wolf remained uncertain. If he were to call for strong reinforcements but only managed to kill a couple of legendary beings and defeat a few monster waves, those reinforcements, would they not have been summoned in vain? The monster overlord is very cunning, he mused. Whether it's fang of the jackal wolf or blood snake in case, their nests are hidden quite securely, probably in anticipation of backup from the vitality forces. Moreover, Mu Yuan's goal was not merely to defeat fang of the jackal wolf and blood snake in case, he also wanted to eliminate as many legendary beings from the two overlords as possible. Only by doing so could his Tianyuan exploratory teams going out for expansion in the future not always be on tenterhooks. Otherwise, even if he defeated the two overlords, the remaining monster legendaries lurking in the wilderness would present significant trouble and even losses to his own territory. Emergency assistance was unnecessary. However, this was also related to the gradually improving situation of his Tianyuan territory. Mu Yuan's Tianyuan territory after all had the super strong beings Deadbone and Duo Lai. He, Lord Shepherd, could also count as 0.9 of 1. Lu Lu, Tree Demon Granny, Rakshasa, Yuda, and other generals were also gradually gaining the qualifications to contend with legendary realm enemies. He already possessed the power to resist risks and make assaults. If it were 3 or 4 months ago, when he had the chance to ask for help, he might have used it. Outside the Tianyuan territory, in a certain place. Hoo-hoo! Wisps of white mist wafted, blending into the ubiquitous white fog between heaven and earth. The mist drifted over the top of a patrolling elite squadron, lingering briefly on the leader, Xi Lu. This human has the blood of a dragon, he deduced. Such humans often have noteworthy potential and are worth eliminating. With his power of Dragon Slumber Mirage Shell, killing a 4-order human was a piece of cake. However, I have a more important mission this trip, I cannot afford to startle the prey. Dragon Slumber Mirage Shell continued to drift forward, even more ghostly than a spectre, and the pre-warning devices set up in forests, at river mouths, and on mountain peaks showed no reaction whatsoever. The patrolling elite soldiers, and even the generals such as Xi Lu, Hong Yi, and Bone 234, did not notice anything amiss. He gradually moved forward, passing through the blockade of one patrol team after another. Indeed, the entrance to the human stronghold is in this region. Through repeated probing, Fang of the Jackal Wolf narrowed down the area, locating this region that the humans were clearly trying hard to seal off. Yuan was well aware that the monster overlord was probing, but there was nothing he could do. If he did not deploy patrol teams to block and snipe the enemy, once monsters flooded in, the vast Tianyuan territory would be unable to stay concealed. His strategy was to delay. But now, a legendary being from the monster overlord power, the Bone of Dragon Slumber, was crossing the blockade lines as if entering an uninhabited land. He looked out. The mist, like his tentacles, continued to spread out in all directions. In his vision, ahead was still the unremarkable wilderness, seemingly no different from other regions, save for sparse monsters. But as the mirage shell mist spread, he slowly peeled away the veil of fog, catching sight of a different scene. A small human city, not so large in scale, encircled by walls. The human power was not hidden within some alternate space, but right under their very noses. Fang of the Jackal Wolf, blood snake in case, such trash, truly not worth one hair of Lord Mirage Shell, he scoffed to himself. He looked on, with Lord Mirage Shell's abilities, as long as I don't strike or get too close, not even the legendary realm can detect me, nor can any enchantment hinder Lord Mirage Shell in the slightest. Given that, why not enter the human territory to scout? Just seeing this territory from afar, as opposed to providing detailed intelligence on the human power, had vastly different values in the eyes of a great emissary. For the latter, he could receive more rewards, prove the prowess of Lord Mirage Shell, and highlight even more how useless the Fang of the Jackal Wolf was. But does that matter? A mere emissary's reward, where was it worth the risk of venturing into human territory for him? Even if he didn't need to take much risk, in-depth scouting would still consume a considerable amount of effort, and his task as Lord Mirage Shell was already completed. It was time for him to clock out. Half a day later. Great emissary, after enduring great hardships and braving the risk of being discovered by that super legend, I have finally found the human stronghold, a miracle territory. And upon deep investigation and careful observation by Lord Mirage Shell, this miracle territory is not large in scale, just a run-of-the-mill little city lacking substantial defense mechanisms. In conclusion, obliterating the human territory is as easy as reaching into a bag. Within Tianyuan territory, at the city lord's mansion. A giant cocoon constructed of countless jet black feathers was inching apart and dissipating, revealing Sophia inside, clad in black clothing and a black skirt. The black diamond-shaped mark on her forehead was slowly fading. Atop her head sat a coronet woven from crystal-like black feathers, mysterious and noble. She had just undergone a trial. Ding! Notice, your troop type Sophia has perfectly cleared the hero trial with an excellent rating, successfully promoted to a hero, acquiring a hero's identity and hero's aura. Notice, Hero Sophia has been blessed by heaven and earth, awakening the strategic skill Nocturne and the strategic talent Night Raven Servant. Notice, Hero Sophia has been blessed by heaven and earth, obtaining the hero's equipment Crown of Night. Yuan handed over the last hero's proof to the Rakshasa for use. Later, his exploratory team, while purifying the root of corruption, was lucky enough to come across a hero's proof. Their purification of a significant number of roots of corruption had finally yielded a treasure of considerable value. As for which officer to bestow this hero's proof upon, Yuan hesitated. His initial thought was to award it to Tree Demon Granny. Tree Demon Granny was an officer who had created a domain very early on and had a higher innate talent compared to Lu Lu and others, with its combat power and experience ranking at the Tianyuan T1 level. However, Yuan's household was not currently in lack of hero units, and Tree Demon Granny, who resided year-round in Treeman Forest, didn't seem to need a hero's identity. So, the hero's proof was kept on hold. In the meantime, a certain Serio had shown interest, but Yuan didn't give it to him. A Mount Dragon like you, what do you need a hero's identity for? 17. As a veteran super soldier of the Tianyuan territory, a T0 level powerhouse in the city defense battles, and the second in command of the defense legions, indeed had a greater need for a hero's identity than Tree Demon Granny did. Yet, compared with Sophia, 17's need for the hero's identity seemed less urgent. At present, for my Tianyuan territory, the importance of a hero's aura, the enhancement of hero combat power, hero-exclusive weapon and similar things is not so significant anymore, he said. What's most important is the commanding ability of the hero, and the ability to communicate directly between Lord Hero. Before the evolution of his spiritual link talent among Sophia and 17, if either one had a hero's identity, their connection would not break. And the new position he arranged for Sophia was the head of the Tianyuan territory's intelligence department, to hold sway over the Eye of Tianyuan. In such a situation, Sophia needed more to possess abilities like hero's vision, direct usage of miracle buildings, and command over troops. Yuan opened the panel to check Sophia's condition. Among them, the strategic skill Nocturne was a supportive debuff type skill, enveloping a wide area in darkness, limiting the sight of enemies within that range and bestowing upon them debuffs such as blindness and fear. This skill was not bad, but Yuan glanced over it after a few looks. His family's enterprise had grown large, they were not lacking in one or two strategic skills, whether they were supportive, offensive, summoning, or other types. Of course, strategic skills were still strategic skills, the value was apparent. In the battle at Wolf Head Mountain, he had gained a stage advantage by relying on the strategic skill Death Legion. Sophia's strategic talent Night Raven Servant was a pleasant surprise. Night Raven Servant. Explanation: Sophia can select suitable targets, transforming them into the rare 3-star stage troop type Night Raven Servant, which possess the ability to create black crows, use these black crows to gather intelligence, and slay enemies in the night. Explanation: Sophia can utilize the vision of all black crows under her command, including those created by the servants. Night Raven Servants can use the vision of created black crows from other servants in nearby areas. Explanation: groups that meet the job change requirements for Night Raven Servants are very few human civilians with a natural affinity for the night, or a small number of ordinary and rare rank human assassin troop types with high spiritual power. He wanted Sophia to establish an intelligence organization for Tianyuan territory. He had confidence in Sophia's managerial abilities and intelligence gathering capabilities, but, on her own, she couldn't support an entire intelligence agency. The training of intelligence personnel was not simple, requiring not only respectable combat power but also sufficient cognitive judgment and analytical abilities. 17 had adequate combat power, and her abilities in concealment and surveillance were not lacking, but if he were to send her alone to a location to gather intelligence, Yuan would be very uneasy. Yuan's previous thought was to slowly cultivate such personnel. Now, with the emergence of the Night Raven Servants, a natural intelligence personnel force was available. Chapter 357, Organizational Structure. The Night Raven Servants' greatest advantage lies in shared field of vision among all black crows. Your crows are my crows, and my crows are yours. Yuan was not unfamiliar with this pattern. Previously, his black crows and Sophia's black crows could achieve complete sharing. However, this was a special case that was rather rare, due to his use of the Sophia template. Consequently, the black crows he created were all Sophia-branded ravens, naturally shareable. Normally, it wasn't easy to establish instantaneous communication between different units, let alone sharing the vision of the whole group. The Jun, who possessed the divine skill field of vision sharing, could only transmit their vision to a single ally, not allowing hundreds to view through a single vision. But the Night Raven Servant could. Moreover, a single Night Raven Servant could create over 100 visual positions, thoroughly outclassing the Jun in terms of vision acquisition. Times had changed, and the intelligence Jun had already left the battlefield. My previous idea was to find suitable troops with reconnaissance abilities and slowly evolve and train them. My Evo power is now complete and isn't restricted by the troop system. It's only a matter of time before I develop the right kind of intelligence troops. However, time was a major issue. What he lacked the most was time. And even if he could evolve troops with advanced abilities such as disguise, stealth, and observation, it would be quite difficult to evolve the strategic method of shared field of vision. For instance, the Lord of Hanyu City possesses the strategic talent of transitioning to the Moon Sword Immortal, and it seems she can also gain some combat power enhancements from her subordinates who are Moon Sword Immortals. For Sophia, it's about gaining a boost in vision. The latter was more valuable. Yuan's household also had other heroes with the ability to transition. At the festival grounds, the hero High Priest of Holy Light, Windsor possessed the strategic talent that allowed for the transition into nun troops. But for Yuan, gaining troops like the nuns wasn't challenging, it was simply a matter of money. The Night Raven Servant, on the other hand, was hard to come by. With powerful vision unlocking, sharing capabilities, and remarkable stealth ability, the Night Raven Servant troop type could be said to have maxed out the technical points in the reconnaissance field. Conversely, it might be somewhat lacking in combat ability. Yuan didn't see it as a problem. Lacking combat skills? Combat talent? Just evolve and it's settled. If one evolution wasn't enough, then do it twice. He was not short of high-order troops or epic troops, only lacking certain very rare ones with unique abilities. As a rare 3-star troop, the Night Raven Servant has rather stringent conditions for transitioning, but my Yuan territory now also has a population of 30,000 citizens. Even if only a small number of them meet the requirements, transitioning a few dozen Night Raven Servants should not be an issue. Sophia can also make selections from among the assassin department of human troops. According to the description, only a minority of the assassin troops meet the requirements, but as the rank and level of the assassin troops increase, they naturally are more likely to satisfy the Night Raven Servant's transition requirements. Yuan pondered. In his Yuan territory, there were also a few assassin-type troops. Normal 3-star level assassins, shadow assassins, and rare 3-star level shadow assassins. Among them, some shadow assassins had already trained to First Order level 8, level 9. Selecting qualified individuals from the troops to transition would form combat power more quickly. However, elite troops from a military background, even when they've awakened their own consciousness, are mostly rather simple-minded. Just like 17. And since scouts often venture into dangerous places, they need adequate judgment abilities, or a single misstep could easily lead to death. Someone as naive as 17, despite their strength, wouldn't be suited for such tasks. Of course, it had only been a few months since officers like 17 awoke their self-consciousness. As officers and the elite gained more experience, they would naturally become sharper. People are shaped by their experiences. If selecting from citizens, and those citizens have rich experience and knowledge, they could indeed become capable more quickly. Sophia's transition talent isn't limited to her own citizens, this power can also be granted to outsiders. Although transitioning outsiders means the resulting Night Raven Servants wouldn't be Yuan territory troops, and their reliability is limited, there is no harm in transitioning a group of external personnel this way. Moreover, with the created Black Crow's field of vision of all the Night Raven Servants Sophia transitioned, she can keep the external personnel under control. Not far away, the hero's mark on Sophia's forehead gradually faded. Her eyes opened, and her entire being exuded strands of mysterious and ethereal charm. Her hero's aura could amplify stealth abilities and the powers of the night, perfectly complementing her. Naturally, her composite abilities also improved significantly. Moreover, she also had her hero's exclusive weapon. Crown of Night. Ability: this exclusive weapon possesses high-level toughness and resistance, and at the same time, can moderately enhance Sophia's spiritual power and stealth ability. Ability: the Crown of Night can split into up to 3 life-bound black feathers, which Sophia can shape into avatars of herself. The Black Feather avatar has 60% of Sophia's base abilities and can use Feather Series and Dark Knight skills. At the same time, within a certain range, Sophia can instantly swap places between her Black Feather avatar and her physical body. Note, the current displacement range is 3.36 kilometers, dependent on spiritual power. As Sophia's rank increases, the quantity of life-bound black feathers can also increase. Ability: in a night environment, the displacement ranges and effects of ability and ability double. Sophia's hero's exclusive weapon seems a bit preposterous, especially when it comes to saving her life. Sophia's true self can swap places with her incarnations at any time and in any place, basically meaning she can teleport about 3.36 kilometers in a thought. If she positions all 3 of her incarnations in the right places, she could switch positions almost instantly, covering 10 kilometers. Moreover, under the cover of night, the extreme distance Sophia can shift doubles, which is roughly 20 kilometers. And in the environment of Black Crow, no matter when or where, it's always a night environment for Sophia, granting her this amplified blessing at all times. This truly is a weapon tailor-made for her. Otherwise, in the eternal world where days are long and nights short, the duration of darkness is not lengthy. With such a displacement ability, coupled with her ability to conceal herself, even if targeted by multiple characters from the legendary realm, Sophia can easily escape. He had previously intended to send Sophia deep into the wilderness to probe into the situation of Fang of the Jackal Wolf and gather information on enemy characters from the legendary realm. He was just a bit worried about her safety. After all, when it comes to running away, Sophia is far from being as good as June. Now, with the Crown of Night in her possession, safety is no longer an issue. At this moment, Sophia is studying her exclusive weapon closely. With a thought, a black feather floats out from the Crown of Night. Then the black feather splits into two, two into three, and three into countless others. Countless black feathers flutter and disperse, revealing a girl with bright eyes and white teeth, wearing black but without the crown. She stands next to the original Sophia, looking like the reflection in a mirror. "Good morning, boss." After spending a day understanding the situation and circumstances of the territory, Sophia had no doubts about her new role assigned by the boss. This is a weighty trust indeed. The boss had said the intelligence agency was among the top 3 most important departments throughout the entire territory. The future of this department now lies in her hands. Although the entire intelligence agency consists only of her, Sophia, a commanding officer without even a name to the organization yet, this does not impede matters. When she went to Langsing to establish a company, wasn't it also all on her to recruit staff? Starting from scratch is something she's very skilled at. Let's start with our territory and filter out the qualified talents. Sophia sends numerous black crows flying towards various locations within the Yuan territory. After handing over the responsibilities to establish the intelligence agency and to explore the north to Sophia, Yuan no longer paid attention to it. As for her reliability, Sophia was second only to Deadbone and Ilo, so there really was no need for any reminders. A few hours later. Prompt: Your hero Sophia has consumed 1,500 grams of soul sand to job change the territory citizen Grey Blade into a night raven servant. Prompt: Your hero Sophia has consumed 1,500 grams of soul sand to job change the territory citizen Rose into a night raven servant. Prompt: In South City of Tianyuan Territory, within the newly established headquarters of the intelligence agency. A dozen seductive or ferocious men and women look joyfully at the power surging over their bodies. They are the first batch of night raven servants selected by Sophia. And also the most fitting and outstanding batch. Most of these individuals are not from ordinary backgrounds. Grey Blade is one of them. He is a first-rank peak strongman who once acted as a dark hand for a big shot in a certain city, but as the city fell, everything turned to smoke and dust. He came to this city called Tianyuan in a daze, becoming an ordinary territory citizen here. Grey Blade used to be quite a master, his notorious reputation making many minor nobles shudder, and of course, he was not content with being just an ordinary territory citizen in Tianyuan territory. He wanted to climb to the peak, step by step. But the Lord's troops weren't recruiting soldiers, and his self-nominations failed. Later, he heard that the security team was hiring people with rather decent benefits, so Grey Blade went to apply. However, despite his notable strength giving him an advantage in the security team's assessment, he still failed to pass the interview. Interview question: If Territory Citizen A beats up Territory Citizen B without any reason, causing minor injuries, how should the incident be handled? Grey Blade: Reply: Killed the little armor. To this day, Grey Blade still can't figure out how he failed the assessment. Was it intentional discrimination by the examiner? He became extremely angry but didn't dare to ask. After all, the head of the security team who interviewed them was a 2-star peak strongman. Later on, Grey Blade found a fairly well-paid job. Bolting in a factory. With his hand speed, accuracy and endurance far surpassing the average person, he earned a decent wage and lived quite comfortably, but he wasn't satisfied. He had more than enough money to live lavishly, but it was insufficient to improve his strength. Until today, when a black crow flew before him, asking if he wanted to gain power, if he wanted to advance further. Grey Blade came. This is power. What immense power! Even though he was still at the 1-star peak, he could clearly feel his strength, speed and spiritual power had all significantly increased, and he even awakened several new skills out of the blue. Such great force! He looked ahead, towards the figure shrouded in a black cloak, indiscernible in appearance or form, kneeling on one knee, offering the most thorough loyalty. In the crowd, Rose was also a 1-star peak little master. She originated from an assassin organization, mastering various assassination techniques. But she knew well the limits of assassination skills. As an ordinary 3-star assassin, even if she refined her skills to the peak, she could at most assassinate a 2-star strongman. In Tianyuan City, there were always stronger people. Even within the so-called third-line troops and militia, there were many stronger than her. Not to mention, above the security forces were the defensive troops and patrol troops. And above the defensive troops were the main forces. Rose understood deeply that the life of an assassin had limits. So, she had her second job class change today. Night Raven Servant. A noble rare 3-star job class. Of course, the price was a vow of unwavering loyalty to the Lord, executing missions for the territory. She didn't mind. She was an assassin who acted on orders, a knife to be stabbed wherever needed. Sophia, shrouded in a black cloak, not a trace of her face showing, scanned her first batch of trusted followers with threads of her gaze. After all, the department had changed. Intelligence personnel must hide in darkness. Naturally, as the head of the organization, she needed to conceal her identity even more, becoming a hunter in the shadows, a night strongman who hunts the darkness. That's what they said in the novels and anime she watched. A deep, neutral voice came from beneath her hood. I have bestowed upon you power, now is the time for the hunt of the night. Do not disappoint me, do not disappoint the Lord. If you perform exceptionally well, in the future, you may receive even more power. Go forth, let the name of the night resound across the land. Grey Blade, Rose, and the other newly appointed Night Raven servants all eagerly gobbled up this promise. Because this promise was tangible and within reach. As long as they worked hard, a bright future awaited them. After all, their territory was one watched over by a giant dragon. Whoosh! A slender blue giant dragon flew over the territory, garnering countless awed and reverent gazes. Working Dragon Long Daifu slightly raised her neck, circling the South District twice and a half before descending with anticipation onto the Ice Heart Lotus platform, the evolution ground. She harbored no doubt about the Lord's great force. She had witnessed how her contemporary dragon Yuta climbed step by step to the peak. Of course, Yuta was too hard-working. Daifu admitted she couldn't do that, truly couldn't, as fighting was too tough for a dragon. Thankfully, the Lord showed mercy, allowing her to avoid the front line, earning the glory to bask in by working and contributing as in 007. Today, Daifu enjoyed the radiance of the baptism for the first time. Notice, your troop-type Water Mirror Dragon Tiff has evolved into an epic 2 stars being and awakened the epic skill Water Mirror Reflection. Chapter 358, Part-Time Job God Skill and Undying Golden Body. Daifu, being a natural giant dragon and a rare, high-level Water Mirror Dragon, undoubtedly possessed remarkable talents. Having engaged in scant combat over the past half-year and not being particularly diligent in training, it still managed to elevate its understanding of the water's artistic conception to the realm of great perfection. Initially, Yuan lucked out with just a few dozen summons to draw Daifu, an SSR epic troop, which could be described as an explosive burst of good fortune. However, Daifu was a pure Dragon series troop, and in the updated Tianyuan territory, it found itself in an awkward position. It lacked the opportunity to evolve. Now, after completing enough part-time tasks, Daifu finally achieved its wish to undergo an evolution and baptism. It was its first baptism, and it promptly awoke with a dozen ordinary skills and several advanced techniques. Among them was Water Mirror Maze, which allowed the creation of unique water mirrors, forming a vast venue akin to a labyrinth, trapping enemies within. Within this area, Daifu could also harness the water's domain to move and shift its position continuously. This counted as a venue skill. And among venue skills, it was considered particularly clever and powerful. Lord Shepherd, who by now had seen much and knew much, instantly recognized the extraordinary nature of Water Mirror Maze. Besides that, there was Heavenly Veil Mist, an advanced technique with even greater obscuring and hiding capabilities than mist. There was Water Giant, a technique to condense water flow into a towering giant over 10 meters tall. The giant possessed immense strength and could extend additional arms, seeming to provide considerable value in transportation. There was Water Mirror Imprint, which allowed the temporary replication of techniques through water mirrors for personal use. Additionally, it seemed capable of replicating technique runes through the water mirror and imprinting them on blank scrolls of magic, allowing the quick creation of scrolls. These advanced techniques are quite useful, but they seem somehow. It seemed like the skills Daifu had comprehended were all work-centric skills. Heavenly Veil Mist could hide transport teams, Water Giant could be useful in construction sites and mines, and it was particularly valuable in canal excavation. Water Mirror Imprint went without saying. Daifu's initial job was to assist Ilo in making scrolls of magic, this was its forte. The work-centric dragon was becoming increasingly adept at the path of part-time jobs. Even as Daifu awoke to several advanced techniques, it remained unalert, surrounded by a mysterious and profound aura, as the venue skill Water Mirror Maze instinctively unfolded around it. Yuan turned off the small enchantment that came with the Ice Heart Lotus platform. On top of the platform, the slender blue giant dragon was shrouded in mist, with clear blue water mirrors swiftly spreading, enveloping hundreds of meters around in the blink of an eye. The labyrinth hummed. Mist drifted densely. A profound sense of mystery rose continuously until, at a certain moment, it broke through a threshold, and the venue skill water mirror maze thus evolved into a domain of azure blue water mirrors. In this baptism, Daifu not only awoke to a venue skill but also leapfrogged 2 significant steps, directly creating its own domain. This natural talent. Mu Yuan hadn't paid much attention to Daifu, but he had heard from Ilo that Daifu was exceptionally quick to master the creation of scrolls of magic and the smelting of large-scale magic, showcasing extraordinary talent. Its perception might even rank in the top 5 within the Tianyuan territory. Without such exceptional qualities, how could Daifu manage to hold down over a dozen jobs, with half of them being high-level and technical professions? However, such high perception, yet not a single venue skill was comprehended in the past half a year. It indeed has been negligent in its cultivation, Mu Yuan considered. Daifu, still immersed in its esoteric state, Mu Yuan opened the panel and pulled out its information column to check the epic skills that had just been awakened. Water Mirror Reflection. Description: Daifu can use water mirror abilities to reflect the target and replicate the individual, with the replica existing for 12 to 72 hours. Note: when water mirror reflection targets an individual, the higher the level of the target, the longer it takes to form a reflection. Consequently, the higher the target's level, the shorter the existence of the replica and the fewer replicas that can exist at the same time. Note: the units replicated by water mirror reflection will flawlessly reproduce their skills, talents, artistic conception, domain, and equipment, and will have a combat logic nearly identical to the target individual. However, if the unit's grade or level is too high, the replicated abilities will be much diminished. This was an epic skill that allowed group replication. Moreover, the replicated entities didn't require Daifu's control. They possessed strong combat abilities on their own. The higher the combat skill and wisdom of the target individual, the higher it would be for the replica. Now, this is impressive. It was particularly suitable for Daifu. Otherwise, given Daifu's lackluster combat intelligence and almost non-existent combat experience, the replicas under its control might not be able to exert even half of their combat power. After a short while, when Daifu awoke, it came up to Mu Yuan like offering a treasure, showcasing its newly awakened abilities. Mu Yuan focused on testing water mirror reflection. A common water mirror formed not far away, reflecting his imposing figure. While the water mirror was ordinary, merely a convergence of pure water flow with nothing special about it, once it served as the medium, the power of water mirror reflection could spread from it. Time slowly passed. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. During this time, Mu Yuan moved out of range of the water mirror's reflection, causing the replication progress to rapidly decline, effectively interrupting the skill. Ultimately, it took Daifu over 300 seconds to perfectly execute the water mirror reflection. Within the mirror taller than 2 meters, a human silhouette emerged, followed by a figure stepping through the rippling water curtain into reality. Its height, build, and eyebrows were remarkably similar to Mu Yuan's, except the clone's entire body was a blue-green color, as if composed of flowing water. Let the clone attack. Wait, let's change the area first. Mu Yuan called Daifu to the warrior arena and confronted the water-blue clone head-on. He had to admit, this clone was somewhat remarkable. Although it appeared to be made of water, when hit, it felt very substantial. In terms of combat skills, it was not far off from his own. Just as the skill description stated, the clone could perfectly replicate the target individual's combat ability and skill talents. The only 2 aspects it couldn't replicate were physical appearance and language. The clone was not a real life form and lacked intelligence, it couldn't speak. Although it possessed the same physique and strength as the target, its azure water form couldn't be altered. That was the restriction. Otherwise, Mu Yuan was considering, Daifu could replicate several high-order monsters to infiltrate monster powers. The water mirror reflection is strong, but its limitations are significant. Its effectiveness in real-time combat is limited. Just like earlier, if he hadn't cooperated actively, Daifu wouldn't have had the chance to maintain the skill. Of course, for Daifu, the water mirrors it could solidify in real combat were far more than just one, with layers upon layers within its domain, seemingly infinite. If given time for preparation, creating a labyrinth of water mirrors could easily obliterate invaders several times or even dozens of times more numerous than itself at the same level. Mu Yuan pondered, it's much easier to replicate our own people than enemies. To maximize Daifu's ability, the best approach is still to have teammates cooperate. However, even so, the upper limit of water mirror reflection is not high enough. For 4th order peak individuals, Daifu can only replicate a few at a time, and when replicating targets from the legendary realm, the strength is further reduced to 1/10 of the original. Wait a minute. Lord Shepherd stroked his chin, suddenly thinking of a way to use it. Since the water mirror clone could perfectly copy even the skills, that meant, if Daifu replicated a pharmaceutical maker, the clone would probably also possess pharmaceutical abilities. If it replicated a forging master, by the same logic, it would likely have forging capabilities. He immediately found a forging apprentice and had Daifu conduct an experiment. The answer was 98% yes. The water mirror clone indeed possessed forging skills and could make several types of equipment the apprentice was proficient in, although it lacked adaptability during the forging process. The water mirror clone could engage in mechanical work, even if that work was very delicate and intricate, but it was not suitable for creative jobs. This was essentially a perfect level tool person. The top-tier assembly line worker. Furthermore, replicating these lower-level individuals consumes less of Daifu's energy. It can replicate more of them and sustain the clones for longer periods. Starting today, Daifu would stand at the pinnacle of the working world, with the capability to compete with Ilo for the title of #1 worker in the Tianyuan territory. Impressive. Mu Yuan planned to share the idea with this dragon. I'm actually this powerful. Daifu's eyes widened in astonishment. Not bad at all. Not bad, Lord. It yearned for evolution, a metamorphosis of life. It wasn't that it didn't desire to awaken powerful abilities, but if those abilities could be used in everyday work to make money, that was double the joy. Delighted, Daifu began pondering how to update its working model, its tail swaying with enthusiasm. Mu Yuan could tell that Daifu wasn't very skilled at combat, otherwise, it wouldn't have taken so few combat missions over the past few months. Missions involving combat offered much higher rewards than ordinary labor tasks. For an epic 2-star giant dragon to do odd jobs every day seemed somewhat wasteful, but it was exactly the right fit for the Tianyuan territory. Daifu had discovered its value, the path where it could shine and thrive. Besides, now that Daifu has awakened the water mirror reflection, it can significantly increase the territory's pharmaceutical and forging output all by itself. Mu Yuan had been preparing war resources all along. Even though he had outsourced a large quantity of supplies, production in his own territory never stopped. However, the Tianyuan territory still lacked core talent, and Daifu could fill this gap very well. Providing the territory with war supplies and powerful equipment is also a way to enhance the strength of the territory. As for the most direct method, naturally, it's breaking through to legend. Tianyuan division generals are all super strong warriors among their peers, and with just one more person stepping into the legendary realm, the comprehensive strength of the territory can increase significantly, allowing for more tactical arrangements. Daifu has also reached the status of a 4th order peak strongman and has created a domain, but, given Daifu's situation, to ignite the light of will might still be a long way off, for she is not yet a legendary seed. Currently, the ones closest to the legendary realm are Ilo, Lulu, and Tree Demon Granny. Ilo has not fallen behind at all in her cultivation. Her potential as an epic 3 stars makes her body polishing more efficient. According to her, in just over a month, she will have her body polished to perfection and can then break through to the legendary realm. Next is Lulu. A few days ago, Lulu also underwent the baptismal radiance, evolving to an epic 3-star rank, and took this opportunity to cultivate the extreme training method to a profound level, boosting his polishing speed by 240%. Lulu estimates he needs 1.5 more months. During this time, he isn't just polishing his body. Aside from his rotation at Wolf Head Mountain and being responsible for the defensive troops, his self-training hasn't stopped for a moment. At this moment, within the warrior arena, "Brother Lu, here I come." As soon as the words fell, the sound of chains snapping echoed through heaven and earth, Yuda's veins bulged prominently, and red flames surged up, unleashing a terrifying tsunami hurricane. He went all out. Both being 4th order peak warriors, Yuda, blessed with the reaping what you sow talent, greatly exceeds Lulu, a warrior type epic 3 stars strongman, in physique. He surpasses the average 4th order peak by a long shot. When Yuda unlocks all physical shackles, his speed and strength even far surpass those of an ordinary legend. His ferocious and vast energy even allows him to break open the domain lockdown of the legendary realm. At this time, in front of Yuda, Lulu's 500-meter radius encirclement domain is like a thin paper, easily torn to pieces. Yuta holds nothing back. Firstly, he believes in Lu Liu's strength, and secondly, they activated the blood lock feature of the warrior arena. Under this miraculous power, they need not worry about accidents occurring and can enjoy a satisfyingly intense battle. A fierce battle of fist to flesh. Dola 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 dola. Red fist shadows continuously bombarded out. Lu Liu's guard shield, which could withstand a moment against the legendary realm, trembled violently under Yuta's bombardment. He was blasted back repeatedly, almost unable to maintain his grip on the hero's exclusive weapon, the fearless spear and shield. The next moment, in the name of the Undying, Lu Liu roared lowly. He was clad in black armor, yet at this moment, golden light burst forth from within him, dyeing the black armor dazzling gold. In an instant, Lu Liu seemed to transform into a golden statue, standing tall between heaven and earth. Yuta's punches thundered down, causing waves of shock, but the golden-bodied Lu Liu remained unmoved, without a scratch on him, untouched by a speck of dust. Even if the earth collapsed, he would stand eternal. Undying golden body. Description: when Lu Liu enters undying mode, he can ignore any attacks that do not carry the power of laws, possessing an absolute defense and an indomitable stance. Under the undying golden body, Lu Liu can fight, but cannot move. Note: Lu Liu's transition to undying golden body mode will consume the power of indestructibility, which can only be slowly replenished over time. Note: through being struck and sustaining heavy damage, the reserve limit of the power of indestructibility can be slightly increased. Note: the undying golden body can extend through skills beyond oneself, but the wider the coverage, the faster the power of indestructibility is consumed. This epic skill doesn't greatly enhance Lu Liu's personal combat capabilities, but its strength cannot be denied. Absolute defense. The skill's rank is quite high, such that even duo-last space-shattering moves cannot leave a mark on Lu Liu's golden body. The same applies to the nine-headed roaring thunder flame dragon. Only the power of rules from legends, or higher rank skills, like Deadbone's power of withering, can harm Lu Liu in his golden state. However, Yuan has also tested that the undying golden body can significantly reduce the damage caused by the power of withering. When Lu Liu uses undying golden body alone, that's all there is to it. But Lu Liu isn't alone. At the right time, with the right cooperation, the undying golden body may possess the strategic significance to reverse the tide of battle. Chapter 359, 14 Lord Treeman, the Forest's Defense Line. Tianyuan territory to the east, Treeman Forest. The trees here are becoming increasingly lush and robust, with patchy shadows and a rich aura of vitality permeating the air. Initially, when Tianyuan territory had just passed the Lord Trial and was promoted to an official territory, the Treeman Forest was located in the East District, occupying about a quarter of the territory, on par with the graveyard in the West District and the residential area to the south. However, as the territory continued to develop, the southern residential area expanded, and new areas such as the Factory District, Plantation District, and Commercial District were added. Now, if one were to look down from above, the entire Tianyuan territory would appear somewhat gourd-shaped, with the North District and the central area forming the two main military zones, the upper half of the gourd, while the South District, providing for the living and work of the territory's citizens, is the bottom half of the gourd. Breaking it down, the eastern Treeman Forest now occupies only about 5% of the entire Tianyuan city, with some buildings constructed around its periphery, such as the herbal workshop and the winery, due to the rich variety of fruits and medicinal herbs produced by the Treeman Forest. Further afield, there stand arrow towers and thunder magnetic coil towers, with black city walls stretching out like a giant dragon. The Treeman Forest is like a small forest growing within Tianyuan city, a pure land unto itself. At most, the trees within the forest have just grown a bit thicker and taller, often shooting up to 60 or 70 meters high. However, if one stands in the core area of the Treeman Forest and looks in a certain direction, an endless sea of trees comes into view. Here the sky is azure blue, the trees are robust, and azure birds and Tai Ching birds soar through the air, and one can also see giant and ancient trees over 100 meters tall. This is the real Treeman Forest. The rich natural and plant energy drifts around, soothing the mind and body of those who enter, as if sweeping away their exhaustion. Yuan wandered, followed by a few chattering flower fairies who picked bright red fruits and offered them to him. Eat, eat. This fruit is just a common one, not medicinal grade, but nurtured by the precious land of the Treeman Forest, the entire fruit looks delicate and tempting. Yuan was about to taste it. Crunch! The baby-faced flower fairy munched the fruit, not even leaving the core behind. If you don't eat, I will. Mu Yuan. This flower fairy didn't seem very bright. But considering that it is just a rare 3-star flower fairy soldier species with limited intelligence, he could understand. The flower fairy series of soldiers are the gardeners of the territory, most of them being rare 1-star or rare 3-star and not very high grade. Firstly, the flower fairies are not a main combat soldier species, and they are numerous, evolving them to the excellence grade costs a lot. Secondly, Mu Yuan found the excellence grade form of the flower fairy series not quite powerful enough, low in cost efficiency, whereas the epic grade nature spirits, he had evolved several of those. Still, despite feeling that it was not cost efficient, Mu Yuan would still regularly grant evolutionary baptisms as a reward to some flower fairies that showed exceptional performance. Mu Yuan called over a nature spirit. Lord, good day. Mu Yuan greeted her and took a look with his lord's eye. Oh, it's the 4th nature spirit Gan Ling. There aren't a few nature spirits in the territory, and he rarely interacted with the ones that evolved later, so much so that he couldn't recognize his own epic soldier species at a glance, truly an oversight. But there's no helping it, there are simply too many epic soldier species of his own after all. Over here is the golden rice, it's already started to grow. The plant here is glazed fruit, it's also growing well. And this area, mainly planted with white sand fruit, is currently under research and adjustment. White sand fruit is a special kind of cultivation fruit. Its insides are like a pomegranate, filled with numerous white seeds that can replace soul sand, allowing soldiers and professionals to absorb and cultivate. Using white sand seeds for cultivation doesn't necessarily speed up the process compared to using soul sand, but it might be more cost-effective. Further up, there are the green sand fruit and blue sand fruit, and cultivation with these seeds is clearly faster than using soul sand. These fruits are not very precious, but they require a quality growth environment, needing both a treasure land and special soil to ensure high yield and a small chance of producing green sand fruit and blue sand fruit. As Mu Yuan's main force generals were reaching the 4th order peak, he didn't have a high demand for green sand or blue sand fruits, he valued the white sand fruit more. The reason being, it was all about saving money. He wasn't very poor, but since soul sand could be saved, why not do so, especially since a single soldier species in full cultivation required 10 grams of soul sand per day. If 3,000 people were cultivating, that would be a consumption of 30 soul crystals a day, 900 a month. For 10,000 people cultivating, it would be 100 soul crystals a day, 3,000 a month. The latter, Mu Yuan couldn't afford to support. Therefore, within the territory, auxiliary soldier species like the flower fairies seldom cultivate, with their levels primarily raised by several bouts of heaven and earth baptism. If white sand fruit could be widely disseminated, the cost of cultivation would be greatly reduced. Mu Yuan visited several farms and plantations, nodding slightly. His main purpose was not to inspect the farms, at this stage, he was focusing more on preparing for war, but since he was there, he took the tour. Stepping out of the open farm area, next door was the forest with robust trees and canopies obscuring the sky. This place also grows many medicinal herbs and fruits, and one can even see graded medicinal herbs and rare level precious medicines everywhere. The entire treeman forest is a vast treasure land, precious items everywhere. As he ventured deeper, the forest became increasingly still, until at a certain moment, an ancient breath revived. The earth buzzed and trembled, and on the colossal trees nearing 100 meters in height on either side, ancient faces appeared. Mu Yuan had arrived at the area where the treeman had taken root. Everywhere one could see roots like giant pythons, crisscrossing through the earth, exuding an atmosphere of simplicity and vastness. War Treeman, 3rd Order 9th level. War Treeman, 3rd Order 8th level. War Treeman, 3rd Order 8th level. Thanks to the recent promotion and baptism, the ranks of the elite Treeman were not low, except for the latest batch of recruits, who were all above the 2nd Order elite. After months of recruitment, and using the soldier recruitment order, the Treeman troops had also accumulated a certain quantity. There were 290 of them in total. This number might seem modest, and completely incomparable to the undead and human elites, but if the 3 major corps were lined up, the Treeman troops would be the most eye-catching. Without exception, the Treeman troops were all excellent 3-star stage war Treeman, each at least several dozen meters tall, more gigantic than the giants, all massive beings. Within the Treeman troops, there were 14 Lord Treeman, not including Tree Demon Granny. 14 epics. Most of them had stepped into the 4th order leader level, with combat power enough to be ranked on the Taishan Dragon Gate list, or even in the forefront of the Dragon Gate list. Around him, roots broke through the earth and wriggled to the sides, clearing a wide path. Above, countless branches swayed, rustling as they shed numerous twigs and leaves. Amidst the treeman's chaotic welcome, Yuan took steps forward. The deeper he went, the taller the standing treeman became, 100 meters, over 100 meters, 200 meters. At the very center, a colossal tree stood prominently, towering over 600 meters, with thick roots constantly entwining and intersecting, its brown trunk dotted with faint red marks reached for the sky. The ancient tree demon granny of Yuan. It gently swayed its branches, causing storm-like waves. It seems to have grown quite a bit again. Yuan stepped into the air and looked around. Given tree demon granny's current size, even though it had the ability to move, its mobility was extremely inconvenient. Even if he, Lord Shepherd, could use the Lord's seal to collect his own troop types within it, it would inevitably damage the surrounding land. However, he had no intention of relocating tree demon granny and the other treemen around her anymore. They had already deeply taken root here, not just superficially. In fact, this was the most suitable posture for the treemen to grow and battle. Treemen that were rooted and those that were not had vastly different combat prowess. And between the temporary rooted treemen and the long-term rooted ones that had firmly connected themselves with the surrounding earth, the gap in combat power was also vast. It was just that the treemen of Yuan territory had never truly taken root before. Yuan was well aware of this, but firstly, the treemen were inconvenient to move after taking root, and secondly, Yuan territory previously had no suitable environment for rooting. Although the environment of treeman forest was nice, accommodating a few hundred war treemen would surely be cramped. If the treemen wanted to grow and take root, they would need to push aside the native trees. Just treeman forest alone couldn't provide enough rich earth nutrients. After all, the treemen were environmentalists, at least on their own territory, they dared not draw nutrients from the earth without restraint. A tree demon like Granny, several hundred meters tall, growing within Yuan city was also too eye-catching. Now it was different. Rooted in the semi-mystic realm of the forest, tree demon Granny was no longer restrained from drawing earth nutrients and could continue to grow. Maybe over time, the treemen would gradually grow, perhaps it was finally deep-rooting, allowing them to access rich nutrients, or maybe it was the invaluable realm of the treeman forest providing abundant natural energy. Tree demon Granny along with the treemen grew in size again and again. This was their normal state. Even giants and giant dragons, other massive creatures, would just be little brothers here. A dragon of the same rank might even lose to an ordinary war treeman in the forest. And the 600-meter tall tree demon Granny was even more terrifying. Even without mentioning the tree demons hanging upside down from it, without mentioning the advanced skills and epic skills it mastered, just its very own self, its sheer mass, was enough to make its enemies despair. Its immense size brought enormous strength and energy, far surpassing the upper limits of the 4th order. Ordinary 4th order leader-level strongmen, even if dozens or hundreds of them attack at once, could be overwhelmingly defeated. The cost is that the treemen struggle to move, and once they emerge from the soil, the power they obtain starts to ebb away, and their stature slowly shrinks, until they revert to their previous level. The place that truly suits the growth of treemen in the Yuan territory is this semi-mystic treeman forest. If the treemen were to root themselves in the outside world, not only would they be conspicuous, they also wouldn't be able to grow to their current heights, nor would they be able to root together. Looking at it this way, deep rooting seems rather useless. The treemen might be powerful indeed, but they lack the space to exert their strength or confront enemies. If the enemy could attack inside this secret realm, Yuan would have already fallen. When Yuan asked the treeman to attempt deep rooting, he had already thought of this. For this reason, he came up with a conjecture. I am the forest permanent state. The skill I am the forest allows the user to turn surrounding flora into their territory and connect it as a whole. It is also an embodiment of the extensiveness of a Lord Treeman's power. Usually, I am the forest is somewhat limited in coverage, at most 2 or 3 times the size of the outside Treeman forest, and it also consumes a considerable amount of the user's energy. But now, the Lord Treeman, having rooted themselves permanently, can draw a great deal of Earth's force to grow stronger and balance out the exhaustion. Yuan's Yuan territory moreover has enough Lord Treeman, and I am the forest is essentially a skill similar to Land of the Dead, which can be linked and used together. Taking a leaf out of the study of the Land of the Dead link skill, under the guidance of Lord Shepherd, Tree Demon Granny and a host of Lord Treemen also gradually achieved the permanent state of I am the forest. The concept of a permanent state focuses on extending power and reducing energy consumption. Initially, the forest territory covered only a kilometer in radius, but then it expanded to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, covering the entire Treeman forest. Today, by transplanting some tree branches from the Lord Treeman, the coverage of forest territory has expanded to encompass the whole Yuan city. Yuan accessed the Lord Treeman template and used the I am the forest epic skill. Instantly, he appeared to merge into the vast forest sea, his vision traveling seamlessly through the forest, and his power pulsating along with it, reaching various parts of Yuan city's walls. After deep rooting, treemen are not suited for long expeditions, but in a siege defense, as long as the forest territory's power can reach an area, Tree Demon Granny and all the treemen can exhibit strength that seems hardly less than when they are deep within the treeman forest. By then, every flower, plant, and tree outside will be a conduit, able to extend 100% of their power. And this power is the combined force of Tree Demon Granny, 14 Lord Treemen, and 275 War Tree Men, linked together and to some extent drawing on the power of the entire forest primordial realm. Just how terrifying the full eruption of this force might be, Yuan could hardly imagine. This is the trump card he prepared for his home. After all, it's better to be prepared for a rainy day. Even if legendary realms were to surge in the future, the Treeman Forest would still be a major trump card within the territorial defense system. I hope these trump cards will not have to be used, Yuan wished. Yuan scanned the area, returning to the urban district. He had heard from Shen Linglong that reinforcements were already on their way. A moon sword immortal from the Lord of Hanyu City's family was in the Twilight Plains territory. He had met with the Lord of Hanyu City in the secret realm just this morning, and she said that someone in his current situation could apply for defensive reinforcements from the Taishan Lianji. Ordinary lords certainly don't have this privilege, but a new star lord can enjoy such benefits, not to mention that a territory like Tianyuan, being an outpost, also holds a certain strategic value to the Taishan alliance, she had said. An opportunity for such benefits should not be wasted, that's what Hanyu said. Reinforcements dispatched officially are also more reliable. However, given the long journey and the need to go through official procedures, it would take at least half a month or more to complete the process. The location of Tianyuan territory is still too deep in the wilderness. Yuan continued to prepare his trump cards. Chapter 360, When Catastrophe Comes, Crush It. Wolfhead Mountain. This place is the communication center of the Tianyuan territory, natural garden, and giant stone ridge. Three major forces. Led by a fourth-order peak elf and a giant who commanded an elite squad stationed here daily. On the one hand, it was to express solidarity, assisting the Tianyuan territory in defending against surprise attacks from monster power. On the other hand, it acted as a representative responsible for the communication and cooperation among the three parties. However, today the legendary figures, White Sword Flower Milena and Absolute Barrier Asolo, also arrived at Wolfhead Mountain. Inside the command center, a tense atmosphere prevailed. We have received news that the enemy is making unusual moves, suspected of awakening war weapons and gathering monster waves. And it's not just the fang of the jackal wolf and blood snake in case showing activity, even the great blood tree forest to the west is suspected of stirring. The legendary elf Milena spoke. The giant legendary Asolo said, "We have noticed something similar." Representing the Tianyuan territory, General Duo Lai sat looking very serious as she listened to what the elf and giant were saying, nodding slightly to show that she understood. Then, there was no follow-up. Miss Duo simply wasn't responsible for strategy or tactics, nor did she indulge in meaningless thought. This wasn't stupidity. She just focused all her energy on cultivation. And of course, eating was an important part of cultivation as well. Her main role here was to act as a mascot, crossed out, to serve as an important representative. After all, Duo Lai was the only legendary figure of the Tianyuan publicly known. In Yuan's absence, she needed to entertain the visiting elven and giant legends. After she hummed an acknowledgement, she also cleverly realized that she probably needed to say something else, so she sent a distress signal to the Lord through the spiritual communication network. What kind of pleasantries should Duo say? Online now, very urgent. Actually, there was no need for panic. Yuan was well aware that Duo Lai was just a mascot. The actual affairs of Wolfhead Mountain were primarily managed by Lu or Bone 4. Tactical discussions were coordinated by Lu. Duo La's role was simply to occasionally serve as a loudspeaker, relaying his commands. Yuan stroked his chin. At the moment, he was engaged in an important cultivation practice and was somewhat surprised when he heard the news. Enemy activity. The elf and giant had laid their plans for over 100 years, although their means were limited and their strength not very formidable. Their intelligence network was broader than that of his Tianyuan territory, with agents infiltrated into many large monster tribe enclaves deep in the wilderness. His Tianyuan territory could only cover the surrounding area of a few hundred kilometers. For regions further away, he had to rely on a few powerful figures like Jun, Rakshasa, and Deadbone to scout. Even if they occasionally managed to penetrate deep into enemy territory, due to constraints such as personnel and time, the information they could uncover was far from comprehensive. Of course, Deadbone did more than just scouting. Hearing the news, Yuan thought for a moment and sent Deadbone and Sophia to a specific area for investigation. He believed in the authenticity of the information from the two major forces, but to get more accurate and detailed intelligence, he naturally had to rely on his own resources. To the south of Tianyuan territory, a certain area over 2,000 kilometers away from the domain, Sophia blended with the night, moving with cautious yet unhurried speed, changing direction to shuttle swiftly toward a particular destination. She seemed like a wisp of a ghost, traversing hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye, the entire process silent. She was the head of Tianyuan's intelligence agency and not just a figurehead, but even though she had managed to train 30 or 40 Night Raven servants, even though several of them had broken through to the Second Order, the only person truly capable of delving deep into the monster overlord's territory for reconnaissance was she alone. Nevertheless, the Night Raven servants were proving useful. Even if they were only First or Second Order, as long as they were with the patrol team, they could expand the team's range of vision. Thus, if a formidable enemy launched a sneak attack, the Night Raven servants could give early warning. If they detected movements of wisdom monsters, they could inform the patrol team to sneak up and hunt down the high-order monsters. Actually, the battle falcons could also serve for early warning and pursuit. However, azure birds and Tai Ching birds were large and conspicuous, often becoming the hunted by enemies. The azures had sharp eyesight and an extremely wide field of vision, but after all, they only had a pair of eyes, and in environments like dense forests, their reconnaissance abilities were far inferior to those of created black crows. Sophia was moderately satisfied with the performance of the crow servants. Given the limited time, there was no opportunity for better training. Nevertheless, her vision was always of the stars and the sea. She wanted to extend her intelligence network further, covering all nations and territories of the eternal world. In an instant, Sophia had arrived at the target area. Black crows had scattered in all directions as she rushed and leaped, matching her nearly as fast flying speed and blending into the night, moving through the shadows. The crows have made a discovery. In the dense forest, rumbling noises emerged as trees toppled down, and a 60-meter-tall flesh and blood war machine started to move slowly out. Around the machine, there were several high-order monsters accompanying it, calling over wandering monsters through some method, then compelling these mindless creatures to merge into the massive war machine. This war machine continued to move forth, growing in size as it did so. A black crow perched on a treetop, its eerie eyes sweeping across the land. The monsters remained unaware. Even as a fourth-order leader-level snake man passed by, it did not notice anything amiss. After all, this black crow not only could hide in shadows, its presence nearly undetectable, and difficult to spot with the naked eye, but it also possessed the phantom night eyes talent bestowed by Sophia. Even a legend in person, if not paying attention, might overlook the black crow. The black crow followed the war machinery. Another dozen or so black crows were scouting along the path taken by the war machinery on its way here. They discovered many high-order monsters and countless traps set throughout the great forest. In such circumstances, even top-tier scouts at the fourth-order peak that excelled in stealth and reconnaissance would find it hard to proceed further. However, the elves and giants were quite experienced with this, and wouldn't dare to venture further in these situations. Scouts who couldn't curb their curiosity or were overly confident and conceited had long ago perished in the wilderness. What remained were those with a wealth of experience. Sophia wasn't worried about safety issues. After all, it was her crows, not herself, that were undertaking the deep reconnaissance. Half an hour later, by relentlessly following clues, Sophia found an area that was likely a weapon factory of the blood snake encase. This weapon factory was well hidden, surrounded by a naturally formed mesmerizing formation. If not for Sophia's crows inheriting her innate ability to perceive, discovering it wouldn't have been so easy. I didn't expect that the blood snake encase would actually have a dedicated weapon factory to produce flesh and blood weapons. No, perhaps the fang of the jackal wolf has one too, it's just that we hadn't found it before. Simultaneously, Lord Shepherd, who was receiving the vision from Sophia's crows, stroked his chin, pondering. Afterward, Sophia and Deadbone discovered the presence of war machinery in several different areas. Sophia even encountered legendary snake men twice. On one occasion, Sophia was only a few hundred meters away from a passing snake man legend. The snake man legend did not notice Sophia's spying. However, if the snake man legend unfolded its domain, it would be hard to say if Sophia could remain hidden. It seemed that no concealment skills could fully evade the envelopment of a domain. Of course, unless a legend happened to pass by, normally Sophia would not be facing a monster legend face to face. She conducted her reconnaissance through her own crows. Even if the crows were spotted, her true body was still several kilometers or tens of kilometers away, well beyond the reach of the domain's radius, giving her ample time and space to retreat. It's a pity that it was Sophia, and not Deadbone, who encountered the monster legend. If it had been Deadbone who chanced upon a legend, he could have slain the legend on the spot without much commotion. But such an opportunity did not arise. After these several reconnaissance operations and the intelligence gathered by the elves and giants, it was now certain that the enemy showed signs of launching a full-scale attack. And this enemy was not just the fang of the jackal wolf, but also the blood snake encase, and the great blood tree forest. The presence of the blood snake encase is one thing, but why would the blood tree king, the master of the great blood tree forest, collaborate with the two great overlords? Yuan's face also grew somber. Wolfhead Mountain. As reports kept pouring in, Milena and Asolo, both legends, became increasingly grim-faced. Why would the enemy launch a full-scale attack at this time? It had all been probing and small-scale skirmishes before, with no significant change in the battle situation, so why suddenly? They couldn't understand. They had not at all anticipated the participation of the blood snake encase and the great blood tree forest in the war, especially the latter. The great blood tree forest was a formidable forbidden zone. Even for legends, venturing deep into it meant no return. The pressure they felt was immense. The pressure was as heavy as a mountain. They were almost suffocating from the excessive deviation from their plans. They even began to have thoughts of retreat. After all, only the Tianyuan of humankind was currently exposed to the eyes of the monster overlord, while their homelands were still hidden. However, if Tianyuan suffered a major defeat, they would stand even less chance against the fang of the jackal wolf. Especially now that the fang of the jackal wolf and the blood snake encase were closely allied. They had to consider that this might be their only chance in this lifetime. Moreover, they had just heard about Tianyuan's backdrop and lineage. Behind Lord Tianyuan stood a solid support. A great power known as the Taishan Alliance. The Taishan Alliance was a great nation-level force of the eternal world, having eradicated countless monster overlords. Now, friends of Lord Tianyuan have already rushed to this place for support. All they need to do is hold on for a while, and more reinforcements from the Taishan Alliance will arrive. By then, they would surely be able to escape the peril. Lord Linglong, a friend of Lord Tianyuan, has also said that he could contact the Federation of All Nations for them. The Federation of All Nations is a great nation-level force formed by various surviving races, including elves and giants. At this moment, they cannot shrink back. They must persist until the end. With the existence of powers such as the Taishan Alliance and the Federation of All Nations, as long as they survive this calamity, the future will truly be bright. Unlike before, even if they joined forces to defeat the fang of the jackal wolf, it was still hard to say whether they could live in peace in the future. We elves will assist in the fight against the monster overlord. We will do the same, another voice echoed. The two legends took a deep breath. Their gaze towards Duo Lai was filled with newfound respect. Had this Tianyuan legend's expression not changed at all from the very beginning until now? Was this the composure of a super-strong being? Clearly, the Tianyuan territory was the one under the greatest pressure. The enemy's arrival was abrupt, and all three parties quickly prepared for battle. Yuan had not yet understood why the monster overlord had suddenly launched a full assault, which also disrupted his planning. His plan was to wait until his territory possessed 8 or 10 legends, then sweep away the fang of the jackal wolf with the force of a thunderbolt. However, a plan is still just a plan, and it's not possible for everything to go as desired. If accidents were not to occur, why would he need to prepare various war resources and killing techniques in advance, and why prepare hundreds of strategic contingency plans? He would regret that things had not progressed according to the initial evolution, but would not sigh with regret, much less shrink from battle in panic. If a disaster comes, they would crush it. Now, with the support of Shen Linglong, reinforcements from the Natural Garden and Giant Stone Ridge, and his own elevation to LV5 in the Tianyuan territory, each of his generals has made significant progress since earlier. He has General Duo Lai. He has Major Dead Bone. He also has himself, the invincible, Great Lord Shepherd. What is there to fear? Atop the Lord's altar in the Tianyuan territory, Mu Yuan sat in meditation, while his avatar waited on the staff of divine right, acting as a medium and bridge, connecting the vast Lord's power. When a Lord stands within the boundaries of their own territory, they can materialize the power of the land and wield it. If the other Lord's powers are similar to the powers granted to the Miracle Lord by the rules of heaven and earth, then this ability is tangible power. It may be called territorial power, akin to a weakened version of the power of the world, with a hint of the power of destiny. It is difficult to wield territorial power and apply it to actual combat. Mu Yuan understood how to wield territorial power on the first day, entering the Lord's Grand Power mode, but to truly apply this power in combat, he would need constant practice and mastery. He brought his hands together, and his vision stretched infinitely, as if his consciousness was breaking through the clouds. He could intimately sense the elemental particles within the coverage of his territory and call upon that power. Even if he wasn't a legend, as long as he was within his territory and wielded the territorial power, his control over the elements and power of heaven and earth would surpass that of a legend. Furthermore, in Lord's Grand Power mode, the entire territory became his extended arm, transforming into a source of strength. As long as he was within the territory, he would receive a tremendous boost, as if with a thought he could move the heavens and the earth, his word could create the world, and he seemed to become a deity. A deity, only an illusion, but at that moment, his consciousness expanded boundlessly, and with a wave of his hand, the invisible territorial power transformed into tangible power of seal and power of heaven and earth. These were two basic applications he had developed. Even as basic applications, it was only with experience using the Wraith Sacred Mountain skill that he managed to master them quickly. Otherwise, for seasoned lords who had not reached the legendary realm, even years of contemplation and practice might not enable them to truly apply territorial power in combat. The third application is amplification. Using territorial power as firewood to amplify a certain skill, causing it to transform. Or to put it another way, using territorial power to replace one's own energy to execute a skill. The third combat application took Mu Yuan days to become proficient. After all, territorial power was limited and once depleted, very difficult to recover. With war looming, Mu Yuan dared not truly expend territorial power, only occasionally entering Lord's Grand Power mode, then had to deduce and extrapolate on his own, or seek guidance from someone like Shen Linglong. 3 modes were sufficient for use.